In a world of fantasy games, Madame Dark, the Golden Warrior and hope of the human warriors, is leading an attack against dangerous monsters. The protagonist of our story hopes is currently clashing swords against a giant orc, enjoying his epic battle. Let's dive into the real world. Kim Junwoo is a loser office worker who loves Over the Fantasy, a game that exists in an era where technology has flourished beyond comprehension. The age of advancement is finally here, and virtual reality games are more popular than ever. Junwoo enjoys playing Over the Fantasy the most, but it's not because of its fame. In fact, the game is less popular than others. It boasts a notorious reputation for being so difficult due to its incredibly realistic graphics. One differentiating factor is that the game refuses to accept money as a form of currency like other games. This means no one will be able to buy their way into becoming stronger. In short, it is free of any in-app purchases involving money. The only way to become stronger inside the game is to level up one's skills. Many players were turned off by the game, but Junwoo actually liked how different it was. So he ended up becoming a no-lifer inside the game, playing it 24/7 without end. Junwoo finishes his work shift, barely surviving the daily beating of his job. He's excited about the game's first major update in 3 years. Chapter 2 is supposed to update at midnight, and our boy needs to get his preparations going before that time. Junwoo gears up to enter the world of virtual reality. The system recognizes his identification and welcomes him to the virtual world. Inside, he's given the choice to pick a character that he likes. Normally, players who have more than 3 max-level characters are considered no-lifers. And guess what? This guy has 7 max-level characters, so he's probably the king of no-lifers at this point. Junwoo, instead of picking a strong character, decides to pick a low-level character called Dio. He's a level 10 normie that is simply used for storage. Junwoo customized him for storage purposes to his liking. He enters the consciousness of his character, becoming Dio himself. Is that a JoJo reference? You tell me. Junwoo learns about an additional class being added to the game. He wants to gather items to upgrade his level in the meantime. But it's not an easy task. It's like organizing a terrible room. Thanks to Dio's storage, he has tons of items to sort, so it's going to take our boy some time to get through them all. After a while, he's finally done with the sorting process. Junwoo arrives at the warehouse keeper called Tony. It took him a really long time, so he doesn't want to waste more of it and requests the old geezer to open up the subspace. Master Shifu-looking ass charges him 1 silver as the cost. The game system is centered around level, which means the higher the level, the more fee a player is charged. This is the key reason why players prefer to keep all their storage characters around level 10, to prevent additional costs. Junwoo takes note of a special weapon that he's been keeping for a while. He retrieves the lichen kukri knife from his inventory and hopes to give it some good use by handing it to one of his other characters. The game notifies him about the incoming update, which will occur in 15 minutes. Players are advised to move to safe locations and log out at once. Poor Junwoo is frustrated because he spent hours organizing his warehouse and couldn't even play the game. He is unwilling to log out after spending so much time doing nothing. Junwoo is confident that the game will forcefully disconnect him when the time comes. Avra Village is actually a dangerous location where the level requirement is level 100. But this guy thinks he's going to be okay as long as he stays hidden in the village square. He quickly navigates his inventory, while the server notifies him again about the incoming update in 5 minutes. The server demands the adventurers to log out, when suddenly, an unexpected glitch occurs, causing a large-scale system-wide error. The game forbids Junwoo's ability to send messages, but he's clueless and has yet to notice any changes. The sorting process is at last complete. Junwoo is exhausted and does a few stretches. But that's when he senses an odd feeling. Even though the update was scheduled to happen, Junwoo wasn't disconnected. In fact, he's still stuck in the game, without any notification of what's going on. Like any sensible player would, he decides to log out manually. But when Junwoo calls for the system screen, nothing happens. The precious logout button that he's looking for is nowhere to be found. Now stuck, his senses have become even sharper. It's strange that he could feel his character to such a fragile level, almost as if he's actually experiencing the game in real life. Junwoo knows something is wrong. With his sharp mind, he concludes that his only hope now is to head to the dimensional fissure. He sprints as fast as his legs could carry him. The dimensional fissure is the only location where users can interact and play with others. Junwoo is hoping to find other people like him, or so he thought, because when he does arrive, no one is there. The gate which was once located here is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a child bumps into Junwoo before apologizing. He stands there, speechless and hopeless, as if he's seen a ghost. The reason for his baffled state is because the impact felt like real life. Junwoo sweats bullets, realizing that the game is no longer any different from the life he knows. Clinging to any signs of hope, he thinks the game must have been experiencing an error. He's so agitated that he wants to sue the developers when he logs out, but I think he's too hopeful for even that. Why? Because 3 days passed, and guess what? Junwoo succumbs to his despair inside the game's world. His luck is the worst because not only is he stuck inside the game, but he's also stuck with the worst character in his team. At the training grounds, the guards are training their men to extreme conditions to protect the village. Junwoo has finally accepted his fate, that he's been transported to this game and that there's no way out of it. Despite having some of the best characters in the entire game, this dude stupidly ended up with a trash level 10 character. It's enough to make him cry. But Junwoo is glad that he isn't facing any money problems. It's just a temporary relief when you compare to the fact that he's stuck inside a game. Junwoo's noise catches the attention of a village guard who inquires about his purpose. He tells the guard that he's merely interested in watching them train. The excited guard offers him to join them in their training, but he declines. Even if he wanted to, it wouldn't be right as he's just a low-level character with no profession. Then, a realization strikes him. Junwoo asks about the purpose of a group training session to begin with. The guard informs him about the incoming waves, and by that, he means monster waves. The Avra village is an average stronghold, but it is not safe from monster waves who come to attack the village from time to time. Players can fight along with the village NPCs to level up and become stronger. The game developers used this system to help the development of the player base. But it's not like a blessing for someone like Junwoo, who is an average level 10 dumbass stuck in a village with only level 100 warriors. It's an overkill mission with no way out for him. Still, he doesn't want to waste his time moping around and pitying his condition. The dude knows he's already fucked beyond comparison. There's also no guarantee if he's going to return alive if he chooses to die inside the game, so Junwoo doesn't want to take that terrifying risk. Assessing his only option, Junwoo decides that he has to survive as much as he possibly can. First, he goes to the warehouse. His goal is to be able to select a class to increase his chances of survival. There's a few options, like assassin class and martial arts class. Despite both of them, he has yet to achieve the required level to promote his current profession. From his inventory, Junwoo spots an interesting promotion book. It is covered with purple light and draws his attention. The class is hidden, but for some reason, he's able to use the promotion book despite his current level. Junwoo wonders if he glanced over some kind of detail inside the game. The fantasy is more realistic than any other virtual reality game out there, and it was tuned to perfection. This means there aren't any bugs, or any cheats, and players are provided with a handful of information. To make the game more interactive and playable, players have to search hidden content and information on their own to make the experience more enjoyable. It's one of the reasons the game did not receive a good reception in reviews, as some players thought it was inconvenient. Anyway, not even a veteran like Junwoo has heard of a special promotion book like this one. He's more than confident that he's stumbled across one of the game's hidden items. Armed with the knowledge of this promotion scroll, Junwoo becomes even more excited to survive in the virtual world. He thanks the old geezer and bolts away to the mercenary guild. Inside, there are adventurers of all kinds. One person deviates from the line and gets confronted by a man. He notices the man's outfit and judges that he's so poor there isn't anything worthwhile for the noob. The arrogant scumbag inquires about his purpose. The cloaked figure tosses him a mercenary's medallion and demands to see the guildmaster. The medallion is a symbol of status, granted only to the best veterans inside the game, which also means that this guy isn't a newbie, but in fact, he's someone who has invested a lot of time in the game. The cloaked figure is revealed to be our boy, Junwoo, who confirms that his A-rank medallion achievement is so good that only the top 0.1% mercenaries could ever hope to reach such a level. He brought it from his warehouse for a specific purpose. Using the medallion's influence, Junwoo will fake his identity as a strong mercenary. He has also equipped himself with an enchanted hood to hide his real identity as a storage character. As for everything else, he's going to gaslight the entire guild in his negotiations. Junwoo tells the receptionist that he's got one more thing to show to them. He unveils the Imperial Medal of Honor, yet another shiny achievement used to signify one's status. Now that he's proved himself as a big shot, Junwoo urges a meeting with the guildmaster. He's hoping to God that others don't start questioning the validity of his medals. One voice praises his achievements. This man is the Mercenary Guild's manager, Cotton. He's a buff dude with a Mr. Olympia physique, and he's eager to hear more from Junwoo in a private meeting. But Junwoo wants to play by his own rules. He's not interested in talking to some lowly manager. Junwoo expresses his interest to meet the guildmaster only. Cotton apologizes on the guildmaster's behalf and explains the guildmaster's absence. That's why he's prepared to hear out the man's request on his behalf. Junwoo likes what he hears and agrees to talk. The dude is sweating bullets underneath, but at least things are going well. The only thing he has to take care of now is the negotiation process. After hearing him out, Cotton learns that the man is looking to take on a quest to the Forgotten Temple. Junwoo confirms that it's his only condition. The manager muses for a moment. While he does have one mission available for the same location, he's curious why a high-level mercenary is interested in accepting the quest. Cotton explains there being a request to guard a priestess, but many mercenaries have already been tasked to the same job. Junwoo is happy to accept the quest regardless, and is uninterested in seeking a reward. His only task is transportation. Intrigued, Cotton asks if he has a mission of his own to protect another important person. Junwoo denies anything of the sort. It's just that he wants to step in case the other mercenaries fail to protect the priestess. Right now, he's confident in his negotiation strategy, especially with no rewards down the line. The manager should send him without worry, as it would help mitigate the risk and ensure success of the mission. Cotton happily hands him the request without a second question. Junwoo is quick to get excited and receives the paperwork to fulfill the contract. He signs the mercenary contract, and so his request is just underway. Cotton informs him about the priestess and instructs the mercenary to return tomorrow at the north exit. Junwoo, content with the meeting, decides to leave and begin his preparations for the mission, hoping to avoid any loose ends. The following day, a bunch of mercenaries are excited to find themselves teamed up with an A-rank mercenary. They're waiting for him approaching the north exit. Raymond is the first to extend his greetings to the A-rank mercenary. Junwoo introduces himself as Monte to conceal his identity. What he didn't predict was the fact that there are only 4 guards being sent on the mission. Junwoo wonders if the manager intentionally removed some of the guards from the mission because of his sudden participation. Instead of things going his way, Junwoo was the one who got fooled instead. The priestess who issued the request comes running and apologizes for being late. Clara, the priestess of the Luna Temple, is going to be in charge of the mission to the Forgotten Temple. Junwoo observes her messy outfit and wonders what happened on her way here. Clara glances at him and keeps staring without end. Junwoo wonders if she has detected something from him. He thinks it has to be out of intrigue, since A-rank mercenaries are considered rare in the village. It's time for the mercenaries to start the mission. Junwoo is immediately hit with a warning notification about his inferior level in a dangerous field. At night, the mercenaries discuss their mission strategy. They plan to stay at Camp 2 the upcoming day by taking a safer path without danger. Raymond agrees that it would indeed be the safest course of action. But then Junwoo comes in with a strong rejection. He insists on taking the shortcut and shares a knowledge of a secret cave that will help them arrive at the temple in less time. Raymond confronts the A-rank mercenary for not knowing the area better than they do. The risks involved in taking the shortcut are dangerous. Junwoo maintains his arrogant stance and claims that he knows better about the area. He suggests using the Dunville Forest to shorten the distance and reach the temple. Once again, Raymond meets him with frustration, and as the Dunville Forest is teeming with monsters that could risk their mission, Junwoo reflects that he's not choosing the path of his own will, but rather, it's because he has to. Otherwise, his disguise won't last very long. He has to maintain his act to fake his level 10 weak self, and this is the only way how. Junwoo intends to look strong and maintains his confidence. He breaks silence and declares that he will head to Camp 3, and that it would be better for the priestess to take the faster route. Junwoo asserts that he's uninterested in wasting time. Outside, he's showing off some mad confidence. But on the inside, he's scared shitless and realizes how annoyed the other mercenaries must be to listen to him. Junwoo consults Clara about her opinion. She's put on the spot and recommends getting there sooner, so she's okay with listening to Junwoo. She's happy to take the longer route on the way back. Raymond and the other mercenaries are forced to obey. They're expecting the hotshot A-ranker to handle all of the monsters in case things get difficult for them. Junwoo confirms that he's willing to do that. He's happy to have acquired Clara's support, turning the tide in his favor. The group goes to sleep to rest and recover for the upcoming mission. The next morning, Junwoo is beaten from his experience sleeping on the ground. Normally, it would cure all of his exhaustion if he was a player. But now that he's physically inside the game, the experience isn't as recovering as he thought it would be. In fact, he feels sluggish and drained. Raymond questions if they're going in the direction of the cave. Junwoo alerts them to be cautious of the nearby werewolf territory. Suddenly, Raymond starts drifting off on his own. Turns out he just wanted to take a piss, and he still seems upset about last night's discussion. Junwoo intends to use the situation to his favor. He recommends the mercenaries to take a break. Luck is not on Raymond's side. The dumbass was attacked by a giant werewolf and is getting his ass chased in the forest. Junwoo is happy that he got exactly what he deserved for ignoring his warnings. Scared like crap, Raymond runs for his life while the other mercenaries beg for Junwoo's help, who doesn't want to participate in the battle because Raymond acted against his warnings. They're annoyed by his attitude. while Junwoo recommends Clara to stay close to him. The mercenaries prepare to defeat the werewolf. This battle would serve as a good example of their skills, and a chance for Junwoo to learn things. The fight starts off, and surprisingly, despite their D-rank status, they're good. They're all over level 100, and with just a slight difficulty, they're capable of defeating the werewolf in their numbered attacks. But the fight isn't over. Raymond was attacked by 2 werewolves, and not just one. The injured werewolf is nearing collapse, giving Junwoo the perfect opportunity to go and steal the kill and demonstrate his abilities. He thinks just one hint of his powers should be enough to make them believe in his strength. Junwoo steps forth to help the mercenaries. Even though they're doing okay, it's hard to kill werewolves because of their hidden skill that NPCs don't know about. Junwoo demands the lowly hunter to step aside. Raymond talks shit despite his precarious condition. He thinks he's won the battle, but clearly this idiot wasn't aware of the werewolf's hidden skills. The monster unleashes its outrage, crushing the D-rank hunter's shield in a single tackle. The mercenary is sent flying, but then Junwoo steps in and instantly dismantles the monster in a single attack. What they witnessed was impossible. While it seems like Junwoo is the one who dealt the killing blow, the reality is, he activated a secret move which became the weakness of the werewolf. Since werewolves are beast-type monsters, they are capable of using a berserk state before death. This increases their physical strength to another level, and boosts their endurance stats too. An effective way to defeat berserk monsters is to use the purifying herb. Junwoo coated his weapon with the herb's powers and simply used it to defeat the werewolf. He already knows everything about the monsters inside the game, so it was an easy task. Junwoo leans forward to kill the final werewolf. Despite their difference in levels, he can still overcome monsters by memorizing their movements. Junwoo dodges each attack, displaying his impressive combat ability, even at level 10. He anticipates the werewolf dashing in his direction. Junwoo causes the beast to hit its own head in a tree. Now that the monster is temporarily stunned, he can easily land the killing blow. One stab from the weapon is enough to kill the werewolf at once. He didn't have to go this far, but it was all done to show his power. Werewolves always die after they leave the berserk state. In reality, if Junwoo tried swinging his weapon against a normal werewolf state instead of berserk, then he wouldn't have been able to hit anything at all. The priestess heals the injured mercenaries thanks to her powers. Junwoo displays his concerns for Raymond's health and apologizes for choosing a dangerous path. His humility, coupled with an amazing performance, earns him Raymond's respect. They finally believe in his skills. Dude ended up with Respect 1000 like he's in a Grand Theft Auto game. At last, they're finally able to uncover the hidden cave, thanks to the A-rank mercenaries' guidance. Convinced of his value, they started to treat him like a hero. They want to hear all about his amazing stories and how he acquired the Medal of Honor. But he thinks it is much too soon to swing for celebrations when they're still stuck with the mission. Junwoo recommends spending the night inside the safe cave. Junwoo accomplished a bunch of things all at once. The only thing that is still bothering me is the game's update. This guy knows every inch of the game since he ended up no-lifing his way to max level 7 of his main characters. But thanks to this update, all of that knowledge and experience could end up useless, so he needs to plan for cases where the game deviates from the original. It will be difficult, but Junwoo assures himself that he can do it. The following day, he displays more of his impressive talents by taking down the Ents monsters. The hunters think it's because of his raw skill, but this smartass has been secretly using a plant disease potion to knock out the Ents in a single attack. Bro is crying because he can't utilize the experience points as his character has yet to establish a proper class. Despite the plant-killing potion, the monsters still attack the mercenaries. He recommends Rika to parry their attacks instead of directly blocking with a shield. Junwoo instructs Raymond to concentrate on attacking the enemy relentlessly while they're in an abnormal state. It's all going swimmingly well for the mercenaries, who are succeeding thanks to Junwoo's expert knowledge. At last, they arrive under the shade of a great tree. Junwoo inspects the surroundings and finds what he's looking for. Their goal is to enter the narrow hole, a shortcut to the Forbidden Temple. Raymond and the others are uncertain. They're scared they might get stuck. Junwoo alerts Clara to be careful. She's getting swooned by his charm, but his warning wasn't just a light one. They're really supposed to fall down. Junwoo descends with the priestess, who screams all the way in fear. The horror trip ends with both of them landing directly inside the Forbidden Temple. Raymond and the others quickly follow them too. Clara is speechless seeing the ancient murals. In the original game, these murals serve a specific purpose to reveal clues about the main storyline. It's about the fight between Luna and the evil god who worshipped the demon god. Luna faced him as the moon goddess of the realm. Raymond points to a unique mural about knighthood. This particular mural catches Junwoo's attention, who is scared to find that this mural is different from the original story he remembers. Reminiscing with the events of the storyline, the Golden Knight is the same person that was seen in the trailer. Clara explains that they're reading a prophecy that has yet to come true. She saw much of it in the temple, but didn't expect to find one in a tunnel such as this one. Clara also serves the moon goddess Luna, so Junwoo is interested in what she has to share. The scripture is written in a dead ancient language, but thankfully Clara knows it. She translates a warning from Luna, which directly states the end of the world. It's exactly the same as the first line of the game's trailer song. Junwoo is now dead certain the Forbidden Temple will contain a unique event, an event that not even he experienced before. Despite his worst fears, he has to pedal through and move forward. Otherwise, he has no hope in surviving the game's world. He commands the group to head inside the temple. As they're making their way to the temple, they're astonished to find a unique path. The golden statue of the armored knight is the same person depicted in the trailer as well as the mural from earlier. Carla admires the beauty of the statue while Junwoo is cautious that it might start moving. Obviously, this idiot is just guessing. Carla confirms that there won't be any problems ahead as the higher-ups already confirmed the area's safety. But it's still strange sounding to Junwoo, who knows that if the statue really becomes the guardian of the temple, then he's about to get destroyed with his current party. More like obliterated even. The system informs him about the new area. The first condition of the quest has been completed by escorting the priestess to safety. Carla thanks the group for being patient with her. The most difficult part of the job is finished. But Junwoo came here with something else planned in mind. His job promotion is still needed to be taken care of. From out of the blue, the promotion scroll begins illuminating an activation. The system tells him that he has reached the hidden condition. In response to the hidden scroll, the entire temple shakes as the golden statue of the knight shatters into 1,000,000 pieces. From underneath emerges a shadow monster that neither of the party members expected to face. The Dark Warrior steps forth, donning a black metal armor. They aren't just facing any guardian. Rather, this guy is strong enough to give level 300 adventurers a really difficult time. He's the cursed Knight of Death. Junwoo is in a pickle. This type of creature shouldn't be spawning in a lower level area after all. Facing the Death Knight, Junwoo questions their chances. His experience as a no-lifer gaming loser leads him to believe that there is some other goal instead of confronting the monster directly. After all, each hidden quest is connected to some kind of background story. That means there has to be another way to solve the quest instead of defeating the Death Knight in battle. Suddenly, his book of promotion activates again, forcing the beginning of the hidden quest. The mission is to obtain the blade of the Death Knight. It's exactly the glimmer of hope he was looking for. When searching for the game's forum, Junwoo once stumbled upon a guide to defeat the Death Knight easily. Its main weakness is holy magic, so if they have even one priest-level NPC, casting a shield should be enough to cause the Death Knight to enter a stun state. Then, the knight will attempt to break the shield, which will skip the initial battle. Junwoo goes for the same exact strategy with Clara. The Death Knight unleashes its furious flames to destroy them. Clara is worried for Junwoo, who instructs her to prepare her holy shield at once. This mission is supposed to become the key to his hidden promotion, and they are perfectly fitting Junwoo's rank. Carla advises Junwoo not to fight against the high-level knight as it could prove to be dangerous for him, but he insists that there's no choice but to cast the shield before it inevitably lays waste to every single one of them. Despite her hesitation, Clara steals her resolve and pours her holy magic inside her spear. When the spear is ready, she confronts the Death Knight. Junwoo helps her lead a precise strike, and at last, Clara casts the holy shield upon the Dark Warrior, entrapping him in a ball of yellow magic energy. Clara is shocked by Junwoo's impressive skills, which leads her to wonder about his identity. The battle has yet to finish, as the Death Knight frees himself from the prison of holy magic. But also, the first phase of the fight has been skipped instantly, forcing them to enter the second phase of the boss monster. For this phase, the Death Knight unleashes its giant blades targeting the ground. Ignoring Clara's warning, Junwoo shouts a question at the knight, once again fulfilling a condition of the quest. There's something special about the Death Knight. It is different from normal NPCs in the game. The monster is capable of speech, and thus a connection between Junwoo and the Death Knight is formed. Our pro-gamer protagonist is betting his life to gaslight the Death Knight with a convincing story. Everything connects just like the clues. They have entered inside the trailer video of the game. Madame Dark was the Holy Knight of Golden Armor. She waited for her messenger to return with reinforcements. In a tragic end, the messenger never returned, causing Lady Dark to become a Death Knight while the messenger became a lost spirit. With all puzzle pieces now connected, Junwoo calls out Dark's name and fools her by claiming to be the messenger. Proof of his identity is evident by the Medal of Honor that he possesses. The Death Knight pauses before kneeling down, congratulating Junwoo for his performance. The dude is actually shocked that he made it this far and gained allegiance to the Death Knight of the Holy Empire. Dark explains that they were eventually defeated and the Holy Empire fell. She waited for a long time for her messenger to return, with most of her comrades fading into non-existence. She mentioned a bunch of their names, but one name in particular was censored for a reason. Junwoo thinks it will serve a purpose, and wonders if he has yet to meet a specific condition. In what little time he has, Junwoo thinks about the final clue, while Dark prepares her blade. She has rekindled her flames of determination. Dark grazes Junwoo with her blade, recreating the exact mural that he saw. The clues encircle his mind. Throughout this time, Junwoo overlooked one critical detail. It was the trailer song's lyrics. Dark wasn't just waiting for reinforcements to arrive, but also grieving in hopes of her loved messenger to return. The Holy Knight Dark longed for the return of someone she loved. Junwoo has acquired the last clue. This person is connected to the final piece. Junwoo remembers how he acquired the A-rank mercenary medallion. The temple in which he found the medal was linked to the ancient Holy Empire. So when the game was updated, the same item found a new purpose. Dark ended up as a cursed knight, transcending death and waiting even beyond. He shows her the medallion, questioning if this is the final condition. At once, the Dark fidgets as her armor tethers away. The final condition has been met, freeing the Golden Knight. She questions if her lover still has affection for her, despite her path filled with cursed blood and her body no longer the same. Junwoo doesn't get how he's supposed to respond to her. Dark claims that her very being trembles in his presence. Even though Junwoo isn't the person she yearned for all this time, he has returned as a messenger to return the final medallion of the fallen warrior. With her shaking hands, Dark embraces the medallion, begging God to be kind to her lover and grant him a place in heaven. From his light, Dark finds her own. And finally, the story of the fallen Holy Knight is completed. Junwoo receives the ancient death sword as his reward. The system adds a new trait to his body and reconfigures it completely. Junwoo finds himself glitching out of the game before the game level shatters to oblivion. He regains consciousness in his normal body in the real world. Junwoo is actually shocked and thinks that everything was just a dream, as there was no way the game could end up becoming reality. He experienced so much fun, to the point he is depressed that his dream ended. Suddenly, the real Junwoo wakes up from his slumber. Turns out the guy was dreaming about his dream. He's still stuck in the game. Clara and the others have come for him. They're so happy that he returned after defeating the monster by himself. It's not something to be proud of, especially when these imbeciles ended up running away from the fight. Junwoo wants to enjoy his rest in silence and throws them out of the camp. Inside, he inspects the ancient death sword with a level limit of 350. He's confused about the weapon's special restriction status. Just like he thought, the game has experienced a bunch of different changes because of the recent update. The only thing he discovered so far is the story's connection to the ancient Holy Empire. Junwoo is at a loss, because everything he knew up to this point won't be useful to him by much, especially if changes keep popping up out of the blue. He wants to stay sharp on his feet to ensure he lives through the end. Junwoo exits the camp and sees Clara. He tells her to return home with the other mercenaries because he has a solo mission to finish at the altar. Back at the altar, Junwoo configures the promotion scroll. It's finally time for him to receive the benefits of his class change. The system has been satisfied with every condition, which leads to an immediate promotion. It is covered by a thick void of energy that the Death Knight used with her weapon. At long last, Junwoo's promotion meets its completion. His new profession is the Forgotten Swordsman with the capacity to grow. Speaking of growth, Junwoo experiences 3 instant level-ups. This is thanks to the experience points he gathered after defeating the monsters in the forest. What's more, is that he's never heard of this unique job title before. It's an ordinary ranked job, so maybe his expectations were too high, and he still doesn't know what growth type even means for his case. Clara comes back to him and requests they head back to the village, but she wasn't expecting to find him in a pensive state. Junwoo assures her that everything's all right and decides to return together with the group. After a long journey, our hero returns to Avra village. Raymond thinks that the struggles they went through in the forest were all a part of Junwoo's training. Little does he know, our boy was just acting for his own benefit. He's excited to reap the rewards by checking in with the guild. But Junwoo didn't come here looking for one, so he took his early leave. The priestess stops him and explains that the Church of Luna is compelled to grant him a reward despite his initial negotiation. Raymond backs him up and casually invites him to a drink too, which means he's all buddy-buddy with this guy. Still, Junwoo impressively formed a good connection with his new team. But he has important matters to take care of and leaves without sharing a drink. His fake identity imposes a certain risk that he doesn't want to let loose and expose by growing closer to these guys. Raymond and the rest of his party are left saddened but ultimately accept his decision. Junwoo returns home, no longer feeling the need to adopt his hood. He's already cautious of his next objective. The reason he was so worried about achieving a promotion is because Junwoo knows about the incoming monster wave that will attack the village. His status window displays a bunch of different stats. Thanks to his experience in the forest, Junwoo is at level 35, but he has a job he knows nothing about. His only clue is that it must be related to the Death Knight herself. After all, the red energy from the promotion scroll matched her powers. A bad feeling succumbs Junwoo, who tries to assure himself. He's had the experience of leveling up characters that he didn't know about. All 7 of his max-level characters experience the same hurdles, in fact. Well, the problem now is that he's leveling up the real deal with stakes involved. It's important to withstand the wrath of the monster wave, and so that's Junwoo's next line of focus. He starts off by inspecting his newest skill that he received from the promotion. Pledge of Liberation is a level 1 skill with a condition-based effect. If the target accepts the truce, all their health will be consumed, and they will become enslaved to the caster. For now, he can only adopt 1 contractor. It's a weird skill with too many risks involved at face value. Its main effect is to siphon the stats of others, and it definitely won't work on targets much stronger. At the same time, using it on weaker targets would be pointless. The second skill he acquired is called Slash. This one is a sword skill, but it's just way too basic. It's so basic that Junwoo is losing his damn mind even calling it a typical skill. In an unexpected twist, red energy emerges from within Junwoo's body. It's the same energy that emanated from the Death Knight. The system informs him that his skills change depending on the state he is in. That means, if Junwoo experiences anger and frustration, the normal skill Slash changes into something else. Adopting the emotion of anger, the skill stats boosted. The evolution conditions are also listed to ensure a steady path of progress. Junwoo is beginning to grasp an understanding of his unique growth skill. His basic skills are subject to evolve, which means his potential is sky high. Junwoo also possesses a special item called the Essence of Fire. It's an item with an increased drop probability when defeating higher level monsters. Junwoo's goal is to level up and increase his skills proficiency, so that he can at least get to level 50 before the monster wave hits the village. Our boy quickly takes action and defeats the armored turtle monster, much stronger than his current level. These types of monsters are pretty weak and sluggish, making them an easy kill as long as you dodge their attacks. Junwoo dodges one of its attacks and goes for the killing blow. The level difference isn't hard to overcome as long as he knows about the weaknesses and attack patterns of his enemies. He levels up to 36, and though he could have finished the fight much faster with a better weapon, Junwoo can't use anything in his inventory because of his level restrictions. Basically, he's too weak to use them. But it's okay for this no-lifer who leveled up 7 characters to max. You can only imagine that this type of training is light work to him. All he has to do is grind his way to the top. Junwoo increases his swordsmanship proficiency with every encounter. After hours spent in tireless training, he stands exhausted, having finally conquered level 50. Corpses of the armored turtles lay wasted around him, as that was the cost to clear the mission. Satisfied with his current level, Junwoo is happy to retrieve the item from his warehouse, concluding his preparations for the incoming monster wave. The system informs him of a local quest to stop the monster wave by helping the villagers. Only 5 minutes remain. Back at the village guards are preparing for yet another monster wave invasion. An entire platoon of hungry monsters are coming their way. The archers unleash their first column of arrows, raining down on many of the monsters and severely wounding them. The next phase of action is to activate the shield bearers. These men are responsible for blocking and defending against the incoming monsters. They do their best to surround and stop the monsters from stepping foot inside the village. Next, the leader tells his spearman group to prepare for an attack. Suddenly, a warrior cloaked in red arrives at the front lines, cutting apart the monsters in a single slash. This mysterious warrior is revealed to be our hero, Junwoo, who also happens to be the famous A-ranked mercenary. Seeing him on the battlefield has ignited the hopes of the village guards. They offer his gratitude. The leader of the guards seems to find his face a bit familiar, which startles Junwoo. He remembers first meeting this same NPC at the beginning. Junwoo denies ever having met him before. Still, the guard thanks him for helping them out. After all, an A-rank mercenary is an amazing support to the villagers. They're happy to lend him a hand in the battle ahead. Junwoo likes what he's hearing, even though every monster in the upcoming wave is double his current level. Still, he's figured out a solution for that too. After activating the Lens of Certainty, Junwoo can see the health bars of the weaker monsters. This smartass targets only the weaker monsters and annihilates them in a final attack. As a show of strength, Junwoo slices and dices all the weaker monsters in his path. Just like his A-rank status, the village guards are impressed by his fearless attacks, which are powerful enough to beat any monster in his way. What they don't know is that he's cherry-picking only the weakest monsters. Junwoo lunges for an aerial strike and cuts down on another monster. It is required that he deals the finishing blow, because unlike his previous mission with a party, this mission can't grant him any rewards or experience points without his participation. Junwoo is able to use his sword with precision, impressing the village guards even more. They're glazing the heck out of him, but they don't know the dude is fooling their asses. He spots a berserk werewolf and happily takes his shot by killing the monster in a single attack. Junwoo levels up as a consequence and even kills another monster to save a guard's life. His experience points keep racking up one after the other. Junwoo is annoyed about the status window and turns it off to stop getting distracted. He steps into the fight, this time setting his eyes on 5 insect-type monsters with less than 10% health remaining. It's an easy kill, the ideal prey, so he launches a full-scale attack and with a single sword swing, causes heavy damage. The village guard is worried for him since Junwoo's previous attack didn't kill the monster, but he's prepared for that possibility too. He strikes down a second, and then a third insect monster with such grace that it makes it seem effortless. After taking down the 4th and 5th insect-class monster, a smile forms on his face, followed by a giant explosion of magic, shocking the guards again with his powers. They weren't expecting this mercenary to also wield the powers of a competent mage. When the smoke clears, Junwoo stands with his reputation higher than ever. Back when he concluded his training, Junwoo capably leveled up his sword proficiency to 100. He unlocks a new stat called Mark, which allows him to leave additional attacks on targets that have been stunned by his slash skill. After using this skill, they cause an explosion effect with a high-level fire damage for each mark used. In short, after slashing 5 targets, Junwoo can make them explode with his sword skill. Normally, detonation skills like these come with a drawback for the caster because they're also caught in the blast. Junwoo comes up with an idea and decides to check his warehouse for more help. That's how he ended up wearing light red armor to resist the effects of the flames. It's a sturdy armor that makes him resistant to explosions, negating any drawbacks of his mark skill. Junwoo lunges forth to strike, unleashing barrels of explosions with every monster he attacks. The best part about his fire-type skill is that insect-type monsters are weak to flames. Suddenly, a giant monster enters the central square, causing great unease. It's a guillotine bear, standing tall at level 150. What's more is that it's a named monster, which is much more superior and powerful than typical monsters. The best strategy against a named monster is to escape and let the guards deal with it. But this cannot get any worse for our boy. In a hilarious twist, the guards make way for their best mercenary to deal with the threat all on his own. Bro is starting to sweat so hard. But anyway, Junwoo anticipated the coming of a high-level monster. The rampaging guillotine bear thrusts forward to slash him. Our hero leaps away, barely avoiding its strike. He counters with a piercing slash, rendering a great deal of damage. Luckily, Junwoo knows about the monster's attack pattern to the point he can successfully anticipate its attacks. Unfortunately, his explosion ability won't be of much use here due to the thick skin of the rampaging monster. Instead, he went for an agile approach, dodging the creature's attacks and running right towards the other monsters. On his way through, Junwoo annihilated the lower-level monsters with his sword slashes. The bear refuses to forfeit its chase. Its only target is to kill Junwoo, but that's exactly what our boy was hoping would happen. He's happy with the current result and tosses a potion right in the bear's face. A strange effect starts to take place, marking the creature's body. Finally, Junwoo releases his explosion magic, defeating the monster in a single attack and earning the praise of the city guards. Witnessing his mighty strength, the rest of the monsters don't have the guts to challenge the Red Warrior. Junwoo is feeling the opposite and shares no ambitions of stopping. He happily lunges forth to defeat them all. After the fight ended, Junwoo made a name for himself as the Monster Hunter. He is currently on his way to Liburnos, after clearing the monster wave in Avera village. Even the coachman is a big fan of the guy now, and his fame has reached well beyond his own expectations. The carriage enters the Paramount Plains. Junwoo no longer feels the same despair as he did when he was a level 10 storage character. Now, he has boosted his stats all the way up to 80, which has taken care of much of his worries. He inspects his stats using the status windows. The Mark explosion skill was one of the best skills he could have asked for. His next mission is in Liburnos to retrieve the essence of fire that he stored. From there, he wants to access his level 100 items too. Junwoo ponders for a while and asks the coachman a question. He wants to know about certain rumors swirling around the Empire. The coachman is surprised by the question and reveals that only 10 days ago, a group of bandits created an uprising in the western region. The third prince is currently drafting soldiers, looking to strengthen his army to defeat those bandits. Actually, Junwoo vividly remembers clearing this exact same quest using another one of his characters. After completing the mission, the player's relationship with Pryon greatly improves. The coachman remarks that Libornos village has a bunch of missing people reports going in the air. It's caused massive problems for the ruler. Junwoo is surprised to hear about this and understands where the story is headed. Having acquired enough information, Junwoo requests the coachman to drop him in the middle of nowhere, even though the village is still far away. After the carriage leaves, Junwoo admits that maintaining a facade of his false identity is quite the exhausting experience. The main reason he got off in the middle of God knows where is because he remembered that it's a location for a hidden quest. In a mountain nearby, there exists a slave dealer's cave, in which the worst and most disgusting evil gang in the game roams free. It's the same group that is responsible for abducting people in Libornos village, hence the report. These guys are actual human trash, and are responsible for human trafficking as well as other heinous acts. It's not like our boy wants to be the hero of justice. He's not Goku or anything. All he cares about is obtaining the agility elixir, which can only be obtained after slaying the boss. Junwoo hides behind a tree, observing a bridge. He maintains his disguise and slowly approaches the cave. A bunch of bandits are talking about the success of their last auction. They want to celebrate by getting drunk and dirty, not knowing our boy is about to put them to sleep in seconds. And that's what he does by trapping one of the bandits with his rope, before lunging upwards to attack. The second bandit is barely able to shout a warning for an intruder, but he's also slashed with a single attack. These guys aren't so tough, they're only level 50, so they're not even worth using skills on. Junwoo spots a beautiful bird trapped in a cage. He frees the little guy and hopes that it never falls into their dirty hands again. The system acknowledges Junwoo's entrance inside the cave. The bandits inside are happy as their treacherous acts have lent them a great deal of money from the dealers. One of them shares his concern for the people of Libornos village, deploying a search party against them. Their leader displays not an ounce of concern. He thinks the nobles care about their money so much they won't bother looking for them at all. I have to say, he places a lot of faith in a lame theory. Suddenly, the leader senses a presence approaching the cave. The bandits all act up in unison to confront the intruder. With a confident smirk, Junwoo questions why they've stopped enjoying their drinks. He tossed them a barrel of a corpse of one of the bandits for added disrespect. Both men foolishly jump him, thinking they've got the warrior outclassed. But Junwoo casually shrugs off their attacks before slicing them in a single slash, killing both men. Now, the leader is scared shitless and alone. He can't hide behind his goons anymore. With Junwoo's warrior dipped in blood, he's more than happy to kill the last vermin inside the cave. It comes as no surprise that the leader of the bandits ended up on the brink of death. He thought negotiating with our boy was going to save him from his impending doom. After all, Junwoo is approaching him with his blade in hand, ignoring his cries. Even though a shitty human being like him is clearly deserving of death, Junwoo almost feels bad for killing him. To remind the evil man of his terrible deeds, Junwoo questions if he also showed any mercy to the ones who fell before him and begged for their lives. After that, he deals the killing blow and ends the man's life. From his corpse, Junwoo retrieves the secret key to unlock a chest. Junwoo opens the chest and acquires the object he was looking for, the agility elixir, which is a permanent stat increase that will help him greatly in battle. Without any hesitation, Junwoo ingests the potion down to every last drop, curing his fatigue as a side effect. His agility stats have now shot up by 5. He turns around to get back to his journey, when suddenly, a realization strikes the man. He senses the presence of another human, lurking near him. But the voice seems to be resonating from a wall, which leads him to wonder if the slave auction is still underway. He clearly heard from the bandits that it was over, so it doesn't make sense. Then Junwoo remembers something crucial. He's confident of his suspicions and places a hand on the wall, opening a secret pathway to a slave prison. Junwoo steps inside and observes the lifeless bodies of humans who are starved and mistreated to the brink of death. He can't dare to look at them, but thanks to his experience playing the game, he knew how to find them. Then again, if it was his first time coming here, Junwoo would have faced a really difficult time navigating through the prison. He spots a wooden door just around the corner and goes up to inspect it. Junwoo opens the door to peek inside. There, he discovers a woman with white hair, trapped in a magical seal of some kind. It's just like he thought would happen. The woman pleads with him to end her life and suffering. She can no longer bear to stay in this disgusting place. Junwoo confirms that she's Sepia, the extra character black mage. She was used as a human sacrifice by the bandits in a ritual which ended her life. Her brother is a known figure and the head of the secondary Knight Corps. Sigmund soon awakens after Sepia's death and ends up becoming the Knight of Judgment under the moon goddess Luna. Long story short, Sepia's death causes an entire storyline to take place. The players were never even required to save her in the original story because her death was always going to be a canon event. To make matters worse, Sepia is cursed by the stigma of death, which adds another layer of complexity to freeing her. Players can't use any magic potion to help her. Her entire purpose inside the game was to become a character who was destined to die without fail. Even now, Sepia has accepted her fate and begs the warrior in red to end her life. While other players don't have a way of saving her, our boy is built differently. He's got a method to save her life. It comes from having the Pledge of Liberation skill. This will allow him to neutralize her abnormal status as a side effect. It will also cause Sepia to become dependent on Junwoo as the original caster. Focusing on the detail of neutralizing her abnormal effects, Junwoo contemplates if this skill is capable of removing the stigma of death curse from her body. He's got a strong feeling that it might be possible to remove the curse this way, but he's hesitant in placing the curse, because it comes as a big risk for him just to ally with Sepia. Junwoo's contemplation ends as he stands before Sepia, ready to make his call. While it's true that she was just a game character before, things are much different now as the game has become his reality. Knowing that she's very much in pain and suffering, Junwoo can't stand to let her live in pain forever. After all, he was also responsible for ending the lives of the trash bandits for the sake of the greater good. He refuses to turn a blind eye on a person clearly experiencing pain. Junwoo kneels and tells Sepia that he has found a way to not only save her life, but also get rid of the curse that has been torturing her. But before he does, he wants to know what she wants to do. Sepia faces a moment of contemplation before coming to her decision. She nods, giving Junwoo the signal to act. Now that he's gained her trust, Junwoo activates the Pledge of Liberation skill, the same skill he thought was useless in his arsenal. Sepia willingly agrees to bearing the contract, and so the next phase of effects kick in. The caster's health will be drained to neutralize Sepia's abnormality, which means Junwoo is going to end up in a lot of pain just for the cause. The contract won't proceed if he's low on health either. Junwoo agrees, which leads to a spiraling effect, draining his vital points. By saving Sepia, he has fulfilled the conditions for her hidden quest too. After a burst of light and a status window's appearance, Junwoo fails to recognize where he has been transported. It's like a hellish land filled with an army of monsters. Facing these monsters are the Golden Knights of the Holy Empire. What's interesting is that not even Junwoo has seen battle armor like that before, despite his overwhelming experience. A three-headed Cerberus causes the destruction of humans, and from the looks of this fight, it seems like the humans are on the back foot and about to lose. Then, out of nowhere, a glimmer of hope shines through the cracks as an angel descends from the heavens. Donning blonde, beautiful hair and a halo over her head, the angel glances at Junwoo and wishes the best for his journey. Junwoo instantly wakes up from his dream, only to find Sepia exhausted and unconscious before him. The illusion he just saw, he wonders if it ties into a clue regarding Sepia's fate. From the looks of it, the world breaks into a large-scale war, and an angel will descend from the sky. This illusion is proof that Sepia might have a much bigger role to play in the game than he anticipated. She's no longer the extra character he thought she would be. Another status window hovers over Junwoo. It's regarding the hidden quest to save Sepia's life. The curse he broke was beyond the powers of the holy magic, so the fact that he managed a way to break the curse is extraordinary. It leveled up his skill. The system asks if he would like to form a pledge as it would cost 90% of his life. Junwoo acknowledges the risks involved and accepts. It initiates the neutralization effects for the curse, draining Junwoo's health points all the way down. While it helps heal Sepia, it's draining Junwoo's life, so much so that he experiences terrible effects when his health crumbles below 10%. When he realizes he's coughing blood, Junwoo is suddenly questioning his decision to become a last-minute internet simp and dying in vain. It's just not his health that's experiencing a decline. Rather, he's experiencing the draining effect in real time. The pain is evidence of his suffering. Sepia rests on the ground, slowly regaining her consciousness. Junwoo, on the other hand, is not in good shape. The warm energy Sepia experienced is helping her rejuvenate. Sepia wonders why someone would go to such lengths for her. At last, the hidden quest is completed, and Sepia's life is saved. His skill levels up, and Junwoo can finally take a stand for himself. The pain was unlike anything like he ever experienced before. He takes her hand and assists Sepia to get her to a safe location. In her dream, Sepia recognizes the cloaked red figure as her big brother, but then realizes that it's not Sigmund who came to save her. After all, he has silver hair just like her. But instead of fearing to take this man's hand, Sepia had made her decision. She too wakes up from a bad dream. Every character in this manga is getting put in a coma every 5 chapters. Sepia feels clarity that she isn't used to. It's been a long time since she felt this comfortable and safe. Then Sepia sees the man who saved her life. He's fully knocked out, but she still can't place a finger on why someone like him would attempt to save someone worthless. Sepia assumes her brother Sigmund sent the man to save her life, but his face is nothing like the Libernos village knights, and despite using a weapon like this sword, he doesn't have any injuries on him. Unfortunately, as she's staring in his face, Junwoo regains consciousness. It makes her embarrassed to peep on him like that, and she jumps back. Our boy remembers that he slept. He introduces himself as Dio. Sepia thanks him for saving her life and asks how he came to find her and if it has anything to do with her brother. Junwoo reflects that she's the only character in the game he has little to no information about because of her short stay. The only common factor players knew about Sepia's fate was her sacrificial ritual, but apart from that, Junwoo believes that it would be troublesome if he assumed to possess more information on her than he should. So in this case, he plays the part of a fool and asks about her brother's identity. Realizing that he doesn't know this man, she's curious why he saved her. This is a problem. Even Junwoo knows that no one in their right minds would stake their own life for a stranger they don't know anything about. He doesn't have a good excuse, so he goes with a particularly strange reason. He tells her he wanted to earn her gratitude. It's an awkward reason, but it works in his favor. After that, they talked for a bit. Sepia's memories are hazy, and she still doesn't recall the details of the contract. The skill forces her to become dependent on him, so she's now become her subordinate without fail. Junwoo inspects her status window and sees the subordination trait that is currently in effect. With this, if she goes against his commands, Sepia will experience a world of pain. With bind skill, she will experience pain if out of range. And finally, with destruction ability, Sepia's life will be forcibly taken if the pledge is broken. Junwoo wasn't expecting the restrictions to be this harsh. At the same time, it makes sense because her original fate was to die anyway. The pledge was the only way to save her life, so he's not guilty about adopting a cruel method. The idiot is trying not to freak her out, so he wants to explain with patience. Confirming the identity of her brother, Junwoo suggests they head to the Libernos village at once. But Sepia seems to be hesitant about trusting him, and for understandable reasons. The slave traders altered her perception of a normal person. Still, Junwoo extends his hand. You might think he's trying to be gentle, but no. This man straight up commands her to hold his hand. Sepia is in utter shock. Her body moved without her permission, but this was a good way of demonstrating their contract. Junwoo explains that they formed a contract, so now she has become his subordinate. He explains every detail about what would happen if she went out of range, or disobeyed him, or attempted to break the pledge. Junwoo clarifies that it's not his own intention, but rather the conditions of the contract. It was the only method he had to neutralize the curse effects, so now they're trapped with each other even if they hate one another. It's a difficult thing to admit, and Junwoo knows that no one would just follow a random dude. The fact is, after reuniting with her brother, she would be forced to journey along with Junwoo because of the range condition. It's a tough thing. Surprisingly, instead of distrust, Junwoo comes to experience trust from Sepia after his transparency. She knows that he's the only reason she's still alive, so she's hoping he takes good care of her. Junwoo is glad that she's easy to persuade. With that, they lock their next destination to be the village of Libernos. The scene cuts to another hideout of the bandits. Their main leader comes to learn about the disappearance of Sepia, who was supposed to become their sacrifice. His trembling servant can barely deliver the news of the deaths of all the bandits inside the cave. In frustration, he lashes out against the servant, furious to have lost such an important sacrifice so easily. He's the one responsible for catching her in the first place. But after that, he soon came to realize Sepia's talent, which exceeded that of a great mage. With her serving as the human sacrifice, he could have climbed to the 7th circle of magic in an instant. Losing her was clearly the worst thing to have happened. Another servant comes to inform him about Sepia's location, who hasn't gone far. Victor prepares his men in his vicious mission to kill the person who stole Sepia away from him. Back to our boy, who is resting and moving slower than usual because of Sepia's condition. But he's sensing a bad feeling. Lost in thought, Sepia has to call his name twice to catch his attention. She wants to confirm if he is a roaming mercenary and asks how he's capable of using such a strange skill. After all, nothing could overpower the curse, not even holy magic, and no one can just form a magic contract casually. These penetrating questions stab our boy because they're difficult to answer. Junwoo trembles to give her an adequate explanation and reveals that he got it from a temple. But this explanation has wavered her trust in him by a small margin, much to Junwoo's disappointment. He questions why Sepia was captured in the first place. Sepia has experienced an order from him before, so she's wondering if he's going to force an answer out of her this time too. Junwoo clarifies that he shares no such intentions, and if she doesn't want to say, then it's all right. She finds his strange mannerisms cute, and thus Sepia's trust increases again. Sepia clarifies that she doesn't find anything wrong with him, but Junwoo grabs her hand and pulls her away, making her question his motives. Junwoo points to her behind. She had just been attacked by a dark energy, the same energy that trapped her. Victor smirks, happy to have met a good challenge from the opposing mercenary. He's brought his little friends along to take him down. Junwoo knows about his identity, which surprises Victor, who assumes it must be thanks to the mark he left. He's furious that a wannabe noble like him chose to mess with the bandits and stole his human sacrifice. Junwoo apologizes before unleashing an attack of his own. He has marked several logs with his explosion skill, only to unleash them at a timely moment. But when the dust settles, Victor is standing without harm. He has taken an interest in the mercenary. This is problematic for Junwoo, because this guy is clearly tanking all of his attacks. Victor is a powerful third circle mage after all, and while he has yet to climb to the fifth circle, Junwoo still has a chance to win this fight. Victor releases an energy wave that barely grazes the red mercenary. Our boy leaps ahead like he's Red Robin Hood or something, and he slashes one of the bandits clean. One of them tries to cast a shield, but Junwoo's slash is powerful enough to neutralize his shield too. Victor's subordinates prioritize protecting their master until he is done preparing for his ultimate attack. Junwoo is happy to keep them entertained with his explosion magic, leaving only 2 more assassins. He leaps ahead and slashes the last few assassins, all the way down to 1. With Victor's attack finally prepared, he releases the devastating effects of the Eternal Curse. This magic is relentless in its pursuits, and guarantees death. The leader of the bandits is confident in his victory now, that is, until Junwoo surprises him. He takes the body of another bandit as a shield and inflicts the curse upon him instead, an easy way to divert the effects. Junwoo insults Victor's outdated, pathetic attempt to take him down. Enraged, the furious mage releases more of his magic, but his defeat is certain now. Junwoo finds him way too slow for a third circle mage and casually shrugs off his magic attacks. An annoyed Victor confesses that he could have leveled all the way up to the 7th circle if he possessed Sepia as his sacrifice. But Junwoo laughably corrects him, stating that his limit is at most the 5th circle of magic. Now that he's gotten inside of his head, Junwoo throws the servant right at him before releasing explosion magic in his face. Victor is blindsided as the mercenary approaches him to end this fight, but strangely the man is glowing in red, burning his body. Even though his mark skill is supposed to be a fire attack, it is reacting strangely. Junwoo turns to find Sepia, who has activated some of her powers in an enraged state of her own. Sepia has entered an unusual state that not even Junwoo expected. Her boundless anger and frustration for her pain unraveled in the forms of chains, binding Victor into place and letting him experience the same amount of suffering. Sepia smiles, happy to inflict the seething pain that she endured throughout her imprisonment. The constrained assassin begs to be freed from his suffering and wails in agony. Junwoo observes her usage of special magic. The strange part about this magic is that it contains an ego. There are only a few NPCs that can use this kind of magic in the later stages of the game, but it's not something just any mage can acquire. The fact that Sepia is capable of activating magic of such a special level proves her talent. She soon crumbles in his hands, her eyes tear-filled from the experience. Junwoo thinks that she has yet to master her powers and that he may have stumbled across someone special. Back at the Libernos village, Sigmund receives an update from one of his men, who have come to inform him of Sepia's location. They believe the bandits are going around in the mountain ranges. Fully enraged, Sigmund curses them and orders his knights to chase after those men. He longs for his sister Sepia's presence. Back to our boy and the new chick, Sepia asks if they're heading in the right direction. Junwoo confirms that he knows of a shortcut around the village, so they're following that. Sensing her unease, the red mercenary wonders if she's still distrusting of him for easily knowing his way without using a map. He thinks that it's going to be tough maintaining a good relationship with her if he keeps making excuses. The only logical way is to keep his mouth shut, and yet Junwoo was careless because she happened to be defenseless. He didn't expect her to wield so much power underneath. After she fell unconscious, Junwoo even inspected her status window and found nothing unusual. The only worrisome aspect was the class section, which seemed to be hidden. He goes as far as to believe that her talent might rival and surpass Sigmund's combat ability, deeming her to be a force to be reckoned with. Junwoo directs her to the path. They're almost on their way to the village now. Sepia is acting strange, and weirdly accepts whatever he says. Bro is starting to understand that he's going to have to level up her trust before asking anything again, because if this chick goes out of control, he's the one who's getting burned alive. Her alter ego is interesting, so Junwoo is curious about her backstory. At one point, he almost wants to forget the concept of trust levels. His curiosity overwhelms him, and he musters the courage to ask Sepia a question. Gathering his words, Junwoo directly asks if she's a heretic of some kind. This strange question instantly decreased her trust in him by 5 whole points. What an idiot. The scene switches to the Holy Kingdom's Adara Cathedral. Carla has come to the cathedral for a meeting. It's her first time inside, so she's speechless with how spacious it is. The man advises her to behave properly for what's next. Carla panics and accepts. She becomes a nervous wreck and greets the moon goddess Luna, who advises her to raise her head. The saintess of the cathedral, Luna, thanks her for her trouble. Carla returns her gratitude for meeting the saintess in person. The reason she was called here is regarding her journey to the Forgotten Temple. An inquisitive Luna is dying to know the exact details of what went down, regarding everything Carla witnessed and heard. So Carla told the story until the defeat of the Death Knight. But Luna stopped her and concluded that her information had been helpful. For her help, she will be granted a reward. Overjoyed like a little girl, Carla thanks the saintess and leaves. Saintess Luna enters a contemplative state and requests for Archbishop Paul. She sensed that while Clara was telling the truth, the man known as Monte is most definitely someone she made up. Luna wants to send a letter to Libernos village to uncover the whereabouts of this Monte person. Let's revisit Sepia's situation, who is offended to have been asked such a vile question. She claims that the black mages were clearly bad people, but Junwoo mentions that cults are always similar in their desire to seek power instead of chasing faith. He could sense that the power she used was unlike anything he had ever seen. Sepia is baffled, and reflects that he might be suspecting of her in return because she hasn't done anything to win his trust. She's scared that he might be someone representing the Church of Luna. The girl decides to risk it all and exposes everything about her past. As a little child, she experienced phases of being mana overload, causing her consciousness to fade. To remedy her cause, her family consulted many mages and failed to find a solution to her problem. Sepia was unable to control this overload of mana with her own might, but she strongly believes the source of her powers isn't anything evil. After all, the mana she experiences originates from fire and light. Junwoo is surprised by the mention of light magic, which connects the dots from the illusion he saw at the moment he made a contract with her. It leads him to wonder if she is connected to holy magic in some regard. Sepia is hoping Junwoo will trust her. As though she is overloaded with mana frequently, she has yet to hurt the soul of an innocent human. Junwoo is a little on edge because he saw what happened to Victor's body. I mean, I get it. You wouldn't want to go how that guy went. Junwoo wonders if her memories are erased after the fight. What's more, he doesn't get why she suddenly decided to share everything. It might be out of fear. Sepia hesitantly asks if he's an investigator of some kind. Junwoo clarifies that he isn't anything like that. He's just an ordinary mercenary like any other. Sepia assumed he was an Easterner based on his appearance, but it's a stretch. Poor guy didn't know about his storage character's hometown, so he doesn't really give a damn. Sepia asked because she heard many foreigners like to join the Holy Church. Junwoo quells her worries by stating that he isn't allied with those people. In fact, he despises such groups to begin with. The people of the Holy Office are called the First Moons of Luna. They possess great power, but their ability to act is limited. They will cut anyone down if they belong to a certain cult. So in their methods, they are quite unforgiving and brutal. Junwoo explains that if he really was an investigator, then he would have killed her on the spot. Sepia has no reason to doubt this logic. The Red Mercenary tells her that it's best they make a joint story for how they arrived in Libernos, as it would save them suspicions of the villagers. After all, if he revealed to her brother that he made a contract with her, it would end up pretty bad. Since she can become a victim to the range effect, Junwoo plots a story to cure Sepia's injury. However, she thinks it's a bad excuse as not even Sigmund would believe such a thing. Instead, he will strongly reject the approach. Junwoo thinks it's still better than opening up about the details of the contract. Sepia requests that he make a promise. If in any case, Sigmund follows them, she begs Junwoo to stop him. The boy grew up experiencing the worst in the slums. He did everything in his power to climb up to his current position. She doesn't want all his efforts to be wasted while helping her. Sepia feels guilty that her brother is at risk of losing his life for saving her. Junwoo was originally banking on the possibility that he might convince her brother to come along, but now he has to follow her request. He promises her and looks forward to entering the city, when out of nowhere the Knights of Libernos come rushing. Sepia carelessly runs, happy to return to her brother. Junwoo is cautious of her and warns her not to trip and fall. Her excitement might end up in her undoing. On the flip side, Sigmund is unlike his sister. This dude is livid. He's mad pissed because he thinks the girl is being chased by the red bastard. Junwoo experiences an oh shit moment when Sigmund swings his sword right in his face. The sheer force of his attack is able to send him back. Junwoo tries to clarify his position, but enraged as he is, Sigmund doesn't listen to anyone and swings his sword. Our boy is barely dodging and blocking his heavy attacks. He even suffers a slash to his face and turns to Sepia, who sees this going down. Junwoo realizes that he messed up, and that she isn't going to help him at all. He's happy that the current Sigmund has yet to reach his full potential from the story. Junwoo activates his barrier, while the leader of the Knights lunges forth to attack him again. Our boy leaps away from his attack before releasing a counterkick. Impressed, Sigmund remarks that his skills are noteworthy. but he's yet to unleash his full powers too. He dodges a sudden attack from Sepia, who interrupts their fight. A puzzled Sigmund doesn't get why she interrupted, while our boy over there in the background is out here questioning his choices. Sepia calls her brother an idiot for acting recklessly and risking both their lives. Unfortunately, this blabbermouth accidentally spilled that her very life is dependent on Junwoo. Sigmund is utterly stumped to discover this horrifying reality, while our protagonist thinks he now has even more explaining to do. At last, they're finally inside the village of Libernas. In the reception room, everything between the three of them is spilled, but not in a way you expected. Junwoo is acting like a doctor from the Middle East who cured Sepia's curse using his techniques and saving her life. Not only that, he also finished the Black Mages on his own. It's a tough story to believe. Dude isn't just a doctor, he's out here playing Doctor Strange. Sepia's brother apologizes for his sudden attacks and claims that he doesn't look anything like the description. He wonders if many other Eastern doctors are like him. His deep interrogation is evidence that Sigmund is going to take a while to convince. Junwoo makes up a story about how he crossed the ocean just to protect himself. He also clarifies that Sepia's curse hasn't completely cured. The technique he used is just a temporary means to delay the curse. Her mark is still in effect and won't be cured like this. Frustrated, Sigmund asks if there's a way to remedy his sister for good. The conversation is going exactly in the direction Junwoo wants it to. He confirms that there is in fact a way, as he's the best doctor in the East. It's a loudmouth excuse that baffles Sepia. Junwoo comes up with a story regarding another poison found in his hometown. The patients who were inflicted with such a poison were monitored during their treatment, and their medicines were subject to constant change. Junwoo insisted on traveling to find ingredients for new medicines. Sigmund's world goes to hell when he hears that Sepia will have to embark on a constant journey with this guy. He immediately lashes out, expressing his disdain and even offering himself instead. But Junwoo insists that it won't happen, as the curse will worsen if the medicine isn't administered immediately. He roars his concerns regarding his little sister, who literally just escaped being kidnapped by a bunch of bandits. Sepia tries to assure her brother that she will be okay as she's feeling all right. Our boy is playing the third wheel in this brother-sibling bonding. Sepia's brother recommends that she go and take some rest because he wants to have a one-on-one conversation with the doctor. Happy as she is, she's ready to rest. Sepia proceeds to leave, but Junwoo suddenly grabs her hand, insisting on checking her pulse. He whispers a warning, instructing her to be sick and write a farewell letter to confirm their leave. After that, he frees her and lets her go. Now, the so-called doctor is left with the leader of the Knights. Sigmund is done playing around and wants him to drop the bullshit. He straight up demands an explanation for his identity. Now, our protagonist knows his previous excuse won't work in this situation. Junwoo speaks the truth and claims that he's called Dio, and he's a mercenary. In fact, he was planning to get a medallion at Libernas. Sigmund is dubious of his ability to lift the curse. In reality, the curse has already been lifted. But Sigmund doesn't know that, because they can't tell him about the details of the Pledge of Liberation. Of course, he would never admit to that. Junwoo emphasizes that he's cured the curse, but Sigmund is sharp. He knows this is just a ploy, and that the mercenary keeps lying. He just doesn't get why he ended up saving Sepia from the bandits, especially by staking his own life on the line. It just doesn't make any sense. After thinking for a while, Junwoo reflects that it's the hardest question for him to answer. He had to come up with an excuse the first time, and now he doesn't really know either. He asks if there's a reason for helping others. Sigmund glances at him and admits that he's uncomfortable leaving Sepia like that. He's too mysterious about his whereabouts. Sigmund is right on the money, but still, it's not like anyone would believe that he possessed a trash storage character. However, he admits that the mercenary did in fact save his sister. Not only that, he knows about the details of the curse. This leads him to wonder if Junwoo can truly save his sister. The man confirms that apart from him, no one can save her. The only person that might be able to pull it off is the Archbishop of Luna. But the knight despises the people of the church, just like Sepia, which is exactly why Junwoo brought them up. He wanted him to feel the weight of comparison between a mercenary and the church. It's obvious that if given the choice, Sigmund would come around and select the lesser of the two. Junwoo furthers that he can help cure the curse, and even help them uncover the missing people of the village. He's fine with exposing some of his powers to gain the man's trust. Sigmund questions how he would be able to help them at all. With one word, back alley, he provokes the knight, who immediately draws his sword, pointing it at the red mercenary with his seething rage. The sheer force scratched Junwoo's face. He recommends the vice captain to stand down and come to his senses. It's not a surprise he reacted so heavily against such a name. Junwoo confirms that he probably believed the disappearances of the people were somehow connected to the back alleys. He also wonders just how Sigmund initiated the search for his sister when she went missing. Junwoo is almost certain that he wanted to raze the back alleys to the ground just to find her. The criminals reigning in the back alleys are extremely powerful, to the point they gave the knights a really tough time. Because of Sigmund's actions, he has stirred up a bunch of trouble for himself. Sigmund is tired of his constant chatter, but it's the only way Junwoo can demonstrate his worth. He can't really think of another way after all. The Blue Knight questions just how the Red Mercenary could prove his worth. But for that part, Junwoo replies with a confident smirk, stating that he's already figured everything out. He's dead certain of a way to completely annihilate the criminals of the back alley. After laying down his plan, Sigmund is convinced that he isn't just bluffing. It's a convincing strategy to take them down, which makes him wonder if Junwoo has been around in Libernos before. The Red Mercenary confirms that he used to be an army surgeon, so he's also done a bit of investigation work from around here. He wants to acquire the trust of the knight, who finally gives in, as Sigmund questions what he wants for helping them. Later, Sigmund thinks that even with the investigation aspect of it, he couldn't have deduced so much based on rumors alone. The fact that he was able to figure out a connection between Sigmund and the underground criminals is shocking. But the reality is, he has been wanting to get rid of those crooks for a while now. Sigmund is betting on this new guy to show his skills and solve some of his problems. But since he still doesn't trust him fully, he decides to monitor him in secret. The Red Mercenary stumbles into the market, observing and scouting for any potential details that may have changed since the game's recent update. Nothing about Libernos has changed. It's just a busy street like it used to be with people filled around. But this exact same location leads to the secret alleyway that leads to the criminal underground. Initially, when he played over the fantasy the first time, Libernos was his first city. He remembers how this story ended up in the back alleys. In fact, he remembers it vividly. But the experience in person, seeing the emptiness of the alleyway, it creeps him out when he's playing for real. In the underworld, there are two main opposing factions that govern it. The first party is the moderate party called Golden Dawn, while the second party comprises extremists. These people are known as the Gore Howl. With the progression of the story, the second faction completely devours the first, thus the underground becomes the land of the extremists. But also in the original story, Sigmund ended up on a rampage after his little sister's death. He annihilated the extremists, as well as the rest of the criminals underground as revenge. But this time, things are different. The story has experienced a clear shift with Sepia's survival. Now the vice captain has no interest in despising the criminal underworld, and so he would never embark on a ruthless rampage to end them. From this point onwards, the story is filled in gray for even our hardcore gamer. Yet, thanks to his knowledge of the original story, he has exactly what he needs to finish the job. Junwoo recalls that in the original game, the Golden Dawn faction was demolished by the Gore Howl extremists. That's also due to the fact that Sigmund had previously damaged much of their party through his knights. The current phase of the story is exactly that. Junwoo sneaks inside the Golden Dawn's base and maintains a false identity of an inspector general. Rudens is especially happy that someone came to apologize on their behalf, since Sigmund is a hard-ass who doesn't extend them the same kindness. Junwoo pretends to be homies with them and assures the man that they will no longer mess with the affairs of the underground back alleys. Smiling with this outcome, Junwoo thinks that the leader of the Golden Dawn wouldn't think twice to back out from this deal, especially since they're on the brink of collapse. It still doesn't change the fact that he's one heck of a criminal, but playing the hero of justice is not our boy's objective right now. He bids farewell to Grandpa Rudens over here and prepares to leave. The first part of his strategy for the days ahead is set. Now, the Red Mercenary has to take care of the storage NPC nearby. When he's done with that, Junwoo takes it to leveling up his skills by killing rat monsters and grinding his way down. He slashes his giant ass sword in the creature's stomach before drawing it out and slashing the one from behind. The rats are wasted in an instant by the Red Ranger. He inspects the status window and discovers that he met a skill evolution requirement. Despite meeting the skill requirement, Junwoo reflects that he has yet to experience an actual change in the skill itself. While he's inspecting the status screen, one of the rat bastards lunges forward to strike him down. He shoots him a good glance before activating his powerful defense barrier. The rat is unable to penetrate the shield. Little guy is actually sweating bullets because he knows he fucked up. Junwoo crushes him with the swing of his sword, sending the clown back to his circus of friends. For his masterpiece of a performance, Junwoo unleashes the explosion ability. He loves abusing explosion effects like Michael Bay in his movies. Right as he's done with laying waste to the monsters, a priest comes to check up on him. He tells Priest Krupus that he's perfectly fine. After all, the salamander armor he's wearing isn't just for show. It specifically works against his own fire-resistant spell, negating any potential threats or damage. Krupus comments on his incredible strength. His magic shattered his holy shield after all. The defensive barrier that protected him was actually the work of Krupus instead of Junwoo. This priest represents the Luna Temple, and they met each other soon after Junwoo signed up as a mercenary for Libernos to take on a bunch of different quests. His first quest involved monster extermination. As you can expect, the dude just killed all of the ratmen that were stirring trouble in the sewers. In return, he was rewarded with performance points and gold. Junwoo wanted to take this quest on his own, but figured it'd be beneficial to have a priest go with him. Krupus is so happy that the mercenaries' efforts have greatly helped with their investigation missions. Junwoo thinks little of his accomplishments and thanks him back for helping him out a bunch. Krupus asks if they need to explore the deeper levels of the sewers, and even recommends stopping. Junwoo confirms and thinks that they've already taken care of most of the ratmen, which means they have achieved their objective. Junwoo tries to exit the sewers, with Krupus left standing there, proud to bless him with his prayers. As he's making way, Krupus marks a malicious grin on his face. He confirms from a note regarding the mercenaries' powers. After all, this guy was secretly recruited by the Archbishop Paul to search for the mysterious Monte. Krupus ended up being a fake friend. Junwoo is confronted by a bunch of crooks. They're the extremists of the Gore Howl faction, and they believe he's a spy from the Golden Dawn. He's not surprised that word got to their ears pretty fast. It's the criminal world, so they were anticipating him anyway. The crooks call him an arrogant fool for treating them like a weak group and underestimating their abilities. Proudly announcing themselves as the Gore Howl, with sword in hand, the man points his weapon at him. In response, Junwoo simply laughs. It's the perfect time to grind these losers until he gets to level 90. He expresses his simple desire to meet their leader. But he also knows that these chumps won't let him pass until he beats them black and blue. Provoked by his insolent words, the Gore Howl warriors advance forward to strike him down. Junwoo smirks with confidence, happy to take them on. It doesn't take him long, but eventually, Junwoo smashes one of their men to the boss's office. The leader of the Gore Howl faction is a woman who wasn't expecting one guy to beat her goons. Junwoo is pleasantly surprised. He found the exact person he was looking for, their leader. He tosses the man on the ground, thanking him for the guide. The leader acknowledges Junwoo as the Easterner who sided with Sigmund and then went to the Golden Dawn faction. She's curious why he's here. Junwoo explains that he's here to clean up the mess, to cleanse the back alleys for good. It's quite the inviting challenge, enough to make the leader of Gore Howl break into laughter. She knows it's a lie, as the vice captain of the Knights wouldn't let an outsider handle all of his problems. She smashes a bottle right next to him, and before fully gearing up for battle, she questions if he's here to declare war. The innocent mercenary calmly declines any such intention, surprising her with his refusal. She inquires the meaning behind his words. Junwoo clarifies that while Sigmund does want him to execute this request, he's not playing the part of being his servant and following every order. The real reason he has come here is to prove unification of the back alleys. It's a grandiose goal that infuriates her. She readies her underlings to beat the shit out of him for making such a crude joke. The Gore Howl men all gather together to jump this guy, thinking they'll have an edge in numbers. And boy are they wrong, because this guy literally blocks an arrow at point-blank range. Junwoo assesses the situation. He has to care for 20 men, but thankfully there aren't any annoying mages in the group. One of the men charges at him with an aerial slash. Junwoo carves his blade out of his inventory and dices these guys with his slashing skill. What was supposed to be a normal slash is actually a really powerful ability for him now. One simple attack pushed many men on the back foot. His overwhelming strength made them question if he's some kind of magic swordsman with abilities of both the sword and spells. They don't dare to go near his blade after all. The skill level between him and the rest of them is vast. But Junwoo isn't planning to let them sit there all day. He goes on the offensive and approaches one of the guys. He charges a full-blown fist in his stomach, throwing this guy on top of the other clowns. Junwoo smirks for having annihilated them with little to no difficulty. He taunts the final warrior and the leader of the Gore Howl group for simply watching the fight. Tusk is getting more and more enraged as time goes by, but Junwoo has secured an upper hand. He tells her that her game won't end well because he'll destroy her underlings. Tusk is done sitting around and roars to take the fight herself. She charges like a wild beast to claw him down. Junwoo exchanges his first clash against her, which is enough to overwhelm him in strength. Tusk foolishly believes that he's nothing compared to him in terms of skill. Junwoo compares her strength to the vice captain of the Knights, Sigmund. In terms of strength, she has the clear upper hand. But our boy has a bunch of tricks in store. He breaks the clash, inviting Tusk to swing for a killing blow with her final attack. Her axe is seconds away from dismantling his head. But then, something happens. Tusk can't believe what she's seeing. This guy blocked the axe with his arm, an impossible feat. It's all thanks to the level 100 equipment that our boy acquired, massively increasing his base stats. Tusk comes to the realization that she's facing an artifact user. NPC characters don't know anything about equipment and stuff, so they call these things artifacts inside the game. It seems like a detail to glance over at first, but even according to the game's settings, certain equipment called the artifacts are deemed highly desired. Faced with a disadvantage and unable to pierce his armor, Tusk hesitantly questions if he can win this brawl because of one measly artifact. She charges at him with her shield. Junwoo responds with a thunderous fist, confirming that he can, in fact, defeat her like this. His punch penetrates her defenses, causing her a great deal of pain upon impact. She is forced to take a knee, defenseless from his overwhelming attacks. The unique equipment Junwoo is wearing is called the Instigation Set, and it's not for show but to kick ass. The base strength stat increase alone is a boost of over 150 points. It's nothing to scoff at. Even with level difference, Tusk is simply outmatched by his better equipment. Unable to accept defeat, Tusk roars in an outrage and surprises Junwoo with her sudden recovery. She tackles him with the full force of her axe, forcing him to block. She's gone berserk, scaring even the likes of him. It ended up in a dangerous battle which guaranteed a difficult victory. Junwoo is barely able to catch her punch. This man goes for a full-force takedown by swinging her body down to the ground. It leaves Tusk with a stinging impact. With this, the fight is over as she's fully knocked out. Her underlings have just seen her go down by the red mercenary, who threatens to kill her. He recommends they stay right where they are if they want their leader to stay in one piece. So they're forced to obey him. Finally, the fight is over. Junwoo is somewhat impressed by his current level, but he knows there's a long way for him to go. Letting out a sigh of relief, he's actually missing Raymond's annoying chatter. Poor guy is wondering how that imbecile is holding up right now, especially since he's the first friend he ever made in the game. Speaking of Raymond, the dude is currently being brutally tortured. The other guys that were in his party and paired up with Junwoo have already been killed. Raymond is crying for a chance to be freed, but his oppressor is Lady Scarlet, who has come to seek her answers in brutal ways. She asks her minion ghoul if they were able to discover any new information. The ghoul remarks that Raymond and his friends were forced to spew everything for the sake of their lives. The last thing they know about Monte is that he left on a carriage. Even the carriage driver was killed. He said that the man suddenly dropped himself in the plains. Scarlet pities the poor party members who chimed in with confidence and loyalty, only to end up spilling everything. She questions if this is the end result of Raymond's loyalty to his friend. Scarlet despises weak concepts like loyalty in the first place, as they're the easiest way to promise one's suffering. One of her men comes to report to Scarlet about a message. It's a note regarding a suspicious mercenary who is making way in Libernas. The details are the same, outlining his explosion skill and use of swordsmanship in battle. It's the same as the monster hunter she's searching for. She wonders if they could catch this mercenary and uncover Monty's identity. In fact, Scarlet is hoping for this mysterious mercenary to end up as Monty. She commands her group to prepare a journey for Libernas. As for poor Raymond, he's promised a brutal death. Scarlet initially told him that she would let him go, but he's a fool for believing in her word, and that's how Junwoo's first friend met his brutal demise. Back to the mercenary in red and his adventures in the criminal underground. Tusk questions why he refused to kill her when he had every opportunity to. Junwoo emphasizes that he came here for a discussion, instead of obliterating their faction. Forced to listen to him this time around, Tusk asks what he's looking for. Junwoo goes back to his part about Sigmund, explaining how the vice captain wants the unification of the two forces in the back alleys. However, Junwoo adds his own twist and acts like he hates that concept. After all, it would require him to stay and keep an eye on the alliance to make sure everything stays in place. To avoid that fate, Junwoo proposes that Tusk be the person to unify the back alleys instead of him. It's a sudden request, and a strange one too. She's confused. Junwoo explains that he's already tried this speech with the leader of the Golden Dawn faction, but they weren't cut out for the job because they're traitors with the mask of good people. Instead, he actually likes Tusk and the way she operates. He's ready to inform the vice captain that he has unified the back alleys under his command, but in reality, it will be Tusk who will supervise and rule the back alleys in his absence. It's going to be exactly like she originally wanted. She would supersede the control of the Golden Dawn. A whole 10 years had passed since this baldhead joined the Gorehowl faction. Times were tough at first, as the criminals weren't split into factions of two, but operated individually and attacked just about anyone. One person became the sole benefactor of all, responsible for uniting the criminals and ending their violence and pain. That person was in fact Tusk herself, the boss of the Gorehowl faction. She was violent beyond violence, and possessed a heroic charm with an astonishing ability to lead others. Because of her ambition to one day conquer the back alleys and completely control Libernas under her foot, the man decided to join her for life. Well, that's where our boy, the red mercenary, chimed in. That dream of Tusk from over a decade ago can now easily be fulfilled by one simple proposal. she easily accepts without a second thought, much to the dismay of the Baldy who feels bad. Poor guy is feeling miserable that she accepted an outsider's proposal with ease. Anyway, Junwoo lays out the plan. He wants Tusk to install bombs in the city before blowing them off. Yes, you heard that exactly right. He said bombs, and he also said blowing. Bro is about to pull an Oppenheimer sequence out of his ass. After that, he instructs her to defeat the remaining members of the Golden Dawn faction, who will assume that they're the ones being attacked. It's going to be an easy victory for the Gorehowl faction because of how weak their opponents currently are. Tusk is worried about the intervention of the knights who could clearly become an obstacle in her way. But Junwoo is here for exactly that purpose. He guarantees that the knights, instead of stopping them, will choose to help and turn the tide to their favor. Everything will be recorded as such. Tusk's group will become responsible for stopping the terrors of the Golden Dawn, and at the same time saving citizens as a consequence. She could catapult herself into fame and instantly become the ruler of the back alleys. It's quite the decent plan, but something is fishy, and even the bald head senses it. He just can't trust Sigmund happily letting them do as they please. He wonders if this hotshot mercenary has any idea what he's doing while plotting a unification plan. Sensing that it's a devious trap to destroy the Gorehowls, the man raises his voice to object to his plan. He can't let his boss be fooled by such an openly insulting plan. But Tusk has already made up her mind and tells him to keep his mouth shut. After all, if Junwoo insisted, he could have wiped them clean, so this is nothing more than a golden opportunity for them to get everything they ever wanted. Without wasting a second, she orders her men to prepare the explosives for the execution of his plan. They have no choice but to obey. Even the blind Baldy is shocked that Tusk is trusting him without an ounce of skepticism or doubt. For the sake of his leader, he decides to plot a plan of his own. The scene switches to our lovable Sepia. She sees Junwoo, who has returned to check up on her health. Sepia explains that she's fine for the most part, but every time he travels far, she senses an odd feeling in her heart. It's almost as if she's being suffocated from the inside. Sepia wonders if it's okay for her to feel that way. Junwoo shrugs, believing that it would be fine as long as they don't travel too far from each other. So far, he's been meticulous about their distance. But now, he's starting to feel the necessity to keep her close by so she doesn't get afraid of the side effects. Junwoo confirms that he's almost done with his business in Libernas, which means it's time to leave and head to the next destination. Sepia has no choice but to leave with him, so he recommends that she make good use of her time and do just that. Sepia agrees, accepting the cold reality. The fact that she has to leave her beloved hometown and stray from her family is obviously going to leave anyone like her depressed. But unfortunately, not even Junwoo, the hardcore pro gamer who is good at everything, can do anything about her situation. He pats her head, comforting her with what little effort he can, and expresses that they'll probably find a way to break the pledge safely somehow. To make it better for Sepia, he offers to show her the most beautiful view of Libernas unlike anything she's ever seen before. In the next scene, Junwoo reflects on his previous thought about being an inadequate person when it comes to matters of the heart. He turns to face the vice captain of the Night Corps, who had been waiting for him until he finished speaking to Sepia. But Sigmund is irritated and reminds him to know his place. In fact, he knows everything about Junwoo's activity, since he sent off a spy to observe him the entire week. He was really surprised to find out that he went to both factions and even signed up as a mercenary to finish a quest in the sewers. Sigmund is curious why he felt the need to enter the sewers at all, or if it had to do with money. Junwoo internalizes that he knew he was being followed. Sigmund explains that he doesn't have details about much else, but his reckless decision to enter the Gorehowl base was still dangerous. After all, those criminals are quick to do the worst to any person. Not like this guy is worried about Junwoo's health or anything. All he cares about is what would have become of Sepia if he died. The Red Mercenary assures him that he's keeping track of what he's doing. He advises Sigmund to operate on moving the Night Corps the right way. He agrees and learns that Junwoo's plan is to help capture the Gorehowls by making them believe the Knights of Libernas are by their side. In short, it's going to be a betrayal of trust and expectations. Junwoo wants Tusk's group to finish off the Golden Dawn members, and only then will the Knights sweep in to capture the Gorehowls. Sigmund is pleasantly surprised about the mention of a signal. Junwoo happily confesses that the signal will be loud and clear. After all, they're going to be a cluster of explosions. The vice captain doesn't like the fact that this man literally endangered the lives of innocents for this plan, but our boy assures him that they will all be fine. 4 days after their discussion, the day of the ultimate battle has at last arrived. The people of Libernas experienced a season of tranquility and peace in these 4 days, but unbeknownst to them, a long and agonizing battle was about to take place, and preparations were underway. Tusk was happy as she could ever be. Her men had just finished installing the explosives in the designated plaza. All she has to do now is play the waiting game for the bombs to explode at noon. She thinks her time to shine and fulfill her ambitions is moments away. After all, she has received a great benefactor aiding her cause and helping the unification of the back alleys all at once. They could have always overcome the Golden Dawn faction, but always struggled against the Libernos Knights. However, that is no longer the obstacle, thanks to Junwoo's intervention, who supposedly solved everything for her. She can't wait for noon to arrive. Her blood boils in excitement, and the wait feels longer than ever. Then, she experienced a sudden feeling, a feeling that she had honed after many battles. Her intuition could not rest but inform her of an incoming danger. The realization hit at last. Enraged, she got up and approached the crate. After lifting the shed, she was baffled to find a set of explosives just underneath their own hideout. It was left with a note by the same damn cheating mercenary who concocted this plan in the first place. Destruction. The bombs annihilated the base. Interestingly, the Libernos people saw fireworks happening around the same time. They couldn't fathom why there were pretty fireworks in the air when there wasn't any festival going on. It led them to wonder if their gracious lord is thinking of their people. Sepia also saw those beautiful fireworks from her window. As for our cheeky protagonist, he's annoyed that the Gore Howl group installed tons and tons of explosives. He had to manually replace each and every single one of the explosives with a Christmas firework item for this plan to work. It helped save the civilians and made for a nice view. The Libernos people are overjoyed to find such a beautiful scene, as if it were a blessing from the heavens. But not even they couldn't ignore the rampant fire engulfing a house. Believing that it must have been caused by the fireworks, they decide to call the guards. Junwoo had to do nothing in this fight. The explosives took care of the entire Gore Howl group for him, including Tusk, which helped rack up a bunch of experience points. It was a huge explosion, so it's clear no one survived. The only members who survived are currently killing the Golden Dawn members like fools. They call out Rudens, the opposing faction's leader. In the conclusion to their bloody battle, the only person who benefited was Junwoo. He cleared a quest and acquired experience points, as well as an honorary badge. 1 hour is nearly done, and before long the knights will be here to take care of the mess. Speaking of the knights, Sigmund and his men are quick to storm to the battlefront. Junwoo is overjoyed to see them in action. While they're cleaning up the mess, he decides to check up on Sepia, deciding that it would be the best course of action to take her away while her brother gets his hands full. He doesn't want to risk a change of heart at the last moment by reuniting them. As she is witnessing the beautiful fireworks, Sepia wonders if this is the view he promised to her. She struggles with the thought of leaving the village. Sepia is startled when a person comes to her door. She remembers locking it in place, so it doesn't make sense that it busted open on its own. While she's horrifically unaware, a giant man has already got inside and could do anything. But let's leave that cliffhanger for later. In the next scene, Sigmund winds up cleaning the mess with his knights. He's not the type to praise Junwoo's efforts, but it's true that everything went swimmingly according to his plan. The Gore Howl group was completely decimated by their own whim, and the Golden Dawn was taken out as a byproduct. The survivors of both groups were destroyed by the Libernos Knights. It was an excellent plan from Junwoo, who has proved his skills, but Sigmund feels uneasy leaving his sister in his care. He orders his men to collect Ruden's corpse and evacuate. In an unexpected twist, Rudens' body exerts a violent purple energy. It's a curse that has taken effect right after the man's death. The mist is identical in appearance to the works of the demon race, causing Sigmund great discomfort. The curse rises and darts its way towards Sepia. Sigmund orders his men to draw back and return to protect his sister. Speaking of which, just about everything went according to Junwoo's plan, except for one thing. He didn't account for Rudens to be so strong and sharp enough to dismantle Sepia. The old fart is intrigued in having a discussion with the mercenary. This is a strange experience for Junwoo, as originally, this guy is supposed to stay dead after getting killed once in the original game. So why is he acting up now? The Golden Dawn became what it was by prioritizing business. But the moment Sigmund awakened his true strength, this guy was defeated. It may not be the best outcome, but Junwoo is starting to think that this guy might have had a hidden story arc of his own. He's no longer the calm and peaceful Rudens that he first talked to. He wonders if everything until this point was a part of his acting. Junwoo curiously asks if the man is interested in doing business with him of some kind. Rudens confirms, before snapping his fingers and unleashing his trap. The room has been sealed with mana. It's a surprising revelation, but he somehow has the powers of a mage. At this point, Junwoo is clueless about this guy's powers. He wonders if there's any chance of beating him to begin with. There's also Sepia being held hostage. The red mercenary takes his chances and throws his blade right in the man's head. This dude wasted no time in making his kill shot. But just to be sure, he leaped on top of Rudens with his sword, impaling his body in a pool of blood. Rudens falls, having suffered from 2 fatal injuries that he normally should not recover from. But that's the thing. He's not normal right now. Junwoo realizes that he's dealing with someone who is too stubborn to die, but he takes sepia in the meantime. Rudens gets back up like this happens on the daily for this dude. He praises the Red Mercenary for his excellence in strategy and combat. He wonders if Junwoo has figured out the secret behind his powers. Junwoo shows a confident smirk and happily confirms that this dude is a literal vampire. Rudens isn't surprised that he knows this secret. Vampires are the only species in the game with this level of extreme regeneration factor. Rudens remarks that he's rather unimpressed with the mercenary's skill level. He wonders if it has something to do with Junwoo's equipment or powers. He's not shit-talking either, because Junwoo confirms in his monologue how he's outclassed right now. The only thing keeping him alive is his inventory and weapons, which are also not the best right now. He taunts Rudens with a slick remark, making him laugh. Junwoo clarifies that he kidnapped an important person out of the blue. He questions why Rudens is gunning for him. The old man is intrigued to hear this response. He's quick to show the mercenary an answer by charging at him with such insane force that it takes everything in Junwoo to block his attack. The man's fist morphs into a vampiric claw, revealing more of his powers. Rudens is impressed to see him keep up. But in reality, Junwoo is struggling in this fight. He's getting severely outclassed. In fact, Rudens rushes to finish him off after exploding his weak spot. Suddenly, the mercenary stabs his eye with a sharp object, staggering him for a moment. It's a candle holder, and I must say, it makes him look better. Rudens hates his new look, so he pulls it out of his eye socket, only to receive another taunt from the mercenary of pure sass and savagery. It is revealed that Junwoo created an opening to invite the vampire for an attack. It's a good way of handling opponents that completely outclass someone in speed. But that's as far as Junwoo's tricks can take him. He's on the back foot, and even a candle holder proved ineffective against the high-class vampire. Rudens goes off laughing in his face again, before declaring that Junwoo passed. The mercenary is almost offended that he said such a thing. The vampire confirms that he knows about his identity and claims that he's in fact the Forgotten Swordsman. The conversation took a turn in a way that Junwoo didn't expect. Rudens wonders why he's feeling like his soul got sucked out of him. It's only natural that he knows about his identity. Our protagonist enters a state of contemplation, questioning Rudens' real identity. Apparently this dude is a vampire who has survived for millennia. The guy is a certified fossil, a relic, the oldest of the old, the primordial granddaddy. After experiencing his long years, he ended up becoming the leader of the Golden Dawn. Junwoo realizes that he's not just a higher-class vampire, but in fact, this guy is the vampire lord himself, which means his powers are way beyond the levels of 350, making him a godly opponent to fight against. It's also confirmed that if Rudens has tried his hardest from the beginning, our boy would have been washed and dry cleaned all over the place. He asks if there are more vampires like him in Libornos, only to learn that it's only Rudens who is left. It's a shocking admission for Junwoo, who wants to know why. After a slight pause, the vampire confesses that their land contains ancient history, evident by the murals of the temple. He even refers to the mercenary as the Forgotten Swordsman. The system delivers Junwoo a sudden notification, confirming that he's found someone who knows about the forgotten history of the game. His background story that was shrouded in mystery is being casually told like it's Christmas. Junwoo inquisitively asks about the history of power. Rudens begins to explain what happened in the Holy Age, many thousands years ago. There was once a deity, the same deity people worship today, the moon goddess Luna. However, in the past, such deities were known for bestowing their teachings upon the humans. During this time, one deity with powers beyond Luna also existed. Pointing to the tattoo on his arm, Rudens explains that it was the sun. The exact crest was visible on the armor of the Golden Knights that Junwoo saw in his illusion. He strongly remembered a storyline involving the church. Every single one of those churches were annihilated except for Luna's. The sun mark is direct evidence to one of the churches which were destroyed in the past. This begs the curious question, why didn't the stronger deity outlast Luna and survive the destruction? Junwoo asks about the deity's name. But it's a sacred and treasured name not even the vampire lord would carelessly drop, especially when the world is governed by Luna's authority. There's going to be loads of problems for him if she ever finds out he's plotting to revive the sun deity. Also, apparently our protagonist shares his powers with the same deity. Junwoo is surprised to hear this, shocked even. He wants to hear about the matter in detail, and Rudens has to treat him like a child for it. He refers to the murals from the temple. In the Holy War, and after the Demon King's invasion, both the sun and moon deities worked together to ensure humanity's survival. But the moon deity grew envious of the sun's powers, so in an outlash, it erased the sun's powers from history. Junwoo has a lot of questions at this point, but the basic concept he understands for now is that the Moon Church betrayed the Sun Church. In fact, They were hell-bent on removing all records of history that alluded to the sun. Luna personally erased every last trace of their existence. In the end, the sun deity was never heard of again. Then the big question comes flying. How did someone like the Vampire Lord survive the extinction of the Sun Church? It is explained that he among others fled, but in great misfortune, the rest of the survivors were cursed to death. Luna had sworn hands and allied herself with the Demon King just to bring about the extinction of the Sun Church. The curse was to make them into monsters that would forever exist in a blank state without life or death. The Golden Knight Dark was also a follower of the Sun Church, which is strongly the reason Junwoo ended up attaining the powers of the sun. Rudens is glad that he was able to piece together that information for himself. It's not just him, but also Sepia who possesses the power of the sun. That explains her alter ego state and her extreme form of magic. All this time, Junwoo assumed that she was just built differently. Turns out she's more special than he thought. Rudens came to Libernas for her sake, but unfortunately, Sepia found herself kidnapped in his absence. He chalks it off as a coincidence of fate to bring all three of them together. All this time, Junwoo thought that he was the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. But as it turns out, everything in his life so far probably must have happened under the influence of the sun deity. The fireworks were underway when Scarlet saw them. Krupus verifies that he also hasn't seen something like this before. Scarlet wants everything to be recorded in their report. She wants to know about this Dio mercenary whom he met on a mission. Krupus explains that he was last seen hanging around with Sigmund, the vice captain. She wonders how they came to know each other. Krupus has yet to figure that part out as the Knights are well guarded and tight-knit in their connections. It's a long way of saying that the Knight Corps are more powerful in the Libernas village than the Church of Luna. Scarlet has heard a bunch about Sigmund's stellar accomplishments, and Krupus confirms this fact. Hearing the qualities of honor and faith, she is more than happy to put Sigmund's value to the test. The Lady in Red loves breaking people's beliefs after all. She issues an order to prepare and check on the vice captain, who is currently on his way to save his sister's life. Junwoo certainly wasn't expecting himself to get entangled with the works of the sun deity, as well as the god of the game. Rudens sees a certain someone approaching and explains that their conversation will have to wait as Sigmund is already on his way. He orders a full-scale search on the mansion for Sepia. Rudens is well aware that the Forgotten Swordsman is itching to know about his many questions, but the only way he'll get his answers is in due time. He instructs Junwoo to head to Astellum to meet a friend who would explain the rest. With that, Rudens' energy fades as he meets his end. Before his banishment, he declares his faith in the revival of the sun. The dude is gone while Sigmund comes crashing full speed inside, questioning where the intruder went. But he's very surprised to find both Sepia and Dio, as well as the wretched state of the room. He wants to know what went down, but Junwoo is too busy staring at his status window. The new class quest keeps him busy. As one would expect, our boy is locked up without a second chance. They don't even spare him the mercy to feed him anything. Junwoo's plans went up in flames, but it's not like he didn't anticipate this outcome. It was always going to happen when he was involved with literal demons on the loose. The old fart of a vampire vanished and created an even bigger mess with his absence. Sigmund's guards greet their captain, while our boy begs to be freed. The guard shouts at him for talking to their leader so casually. Sigmund requests to have a private discussion with the supposed culprit. Junwoo is quick to point out the ill treatment he's getting for all the work he's done. Turns out Sigmund had no choice but to put him in jail because of witnesses. He has no vendetta against the guy, but there's still a problem bothering him. Junwoo tries to clear his name, but Sigmund cuts him off, stating that a representative from the Church of Luna came to visit them. They were interested in a guy called Monte and the person responsible for explosions. Hearing this news comes as a shock to Junwoo's mind. The knight adds that the church actually wants to interrogate both Sepia and Dio, who were at the scene of the crime. But this guy, being the alpha male knight he is, said no you and repelled their command. Even Junwoo is shocked that he went against the decision as it could jeopardize his own life. Even Rudens pointed out how strong Luna's influence ranges across the world. At full scale, the Libernas Knights won't prove to be a match for the church, so it seems like a foolish move. Sigmund argues that he did that to ensure they never find out about his sister's powers. It was a necessary move to protect her life. While he doesn't trust Junwoo completely, it was the only way he could resolve the situation. He frees our boy from behind the bars. Junwoo asks how he's going to handle Luna. Unfortunately, even for Sigmund, he can only try to stop them. Speaking of which, Luna's people have come to talk to Sigmund. He tells Junwoo to take Sepia and make a run for it. It's much to his dismay and demise, but this is the only choice he has right now. Junwoo immediately acts on his words, rushing to save Sepia's life. He can't let his sacrifice go to waste, and he's still unsure if Sigmund will be capable enough to bring down the investigators from the church. Originally, when he played the game, and throughout the entirety of the story until now, Junwoo always assumed that the moon goddess Luna was the good side, that they were supporting the players all along, but it turns out to not be the case. It's the church itself that's the main enemy. The sudden twist to the storyline excites him. The guards representing the moon goddess have arrived to act as they please. It causes a conflict against the Libernos Knights, who are unwilling to tolerate their disrespect. Scarlet laughs as she makes way through her men. She thinks it's them who are disrespectful for standing in the way of the church. Before the man is capable of finishing his sentence, his life is cut short in a single, precise slash. Scarlet displays her dominance by cutting them down and starting a new battle. She claims that she was just punishing the man as an inquisitor of the church. Scarlet has been especially sent to target Sepia and the mysterious mercenary. She's fine with leaving them be as long as they surrender both of those people. And if they refuse, only death awaits them by her hands. The guards prepare to challenge her, which is exactly what she was hoping they would do. One man's voice penetrates the scene. It's Sigmund who orders his knights to cease battle. He tells them to remove the body of their fallen comrade. Scarlet blushes at the sight of the charming knight who is currently the leader of the Knight Corps. Sigmund humbly states that he's acting as a substitute to their lord. He wonders why and how an inquisitor like her could go so far as to kill a Libernos knight. Scarlet sharply responds that they chose their own fate by standing in her way. Enraged by her response, the rest of the knights speak of their disdain, as they didn't even cause any offense or raise their swords, and yet they were met with cruel punishment. Sigmund tells them to stop and offers to understand the situation. He wants the knights to conclude their investigation before the church, and isn't planning to let them do what they want. But Scarlet is sharp. She knows he's hiding something. Scarlet quickly exposes that he's trying to protect his little sister. Sigmund responds that his sister has nothing to do with the affair, as she's in the process of recovering. He wants the knights to be the first one to investigate her. Scarlet happily accepts his answer, which leads him to wonder if she's willing to back down now. But clearly not, as she becomes the first person to initiate the fight, grazing Sigmund's face slightly and refusing to back down. She has a sword pointed at Sigmund and is impressed to find him dodging her attack. His abilities are indeed stellar. Scarlet even believes that he could have created an opportunity to counterattack in that instance. But he didn't even reach for his sword. She's swooned by him and his amazing talent. But the humble knight thinks the red rose of the goddess is much too remarkable on her own. She's flattered he knows her name. She rushes for her second attack, but even now, Sigmund barely blocks the attack. She knows that the reason he refuses to fight is because he's arrogant and thinks she's inferior to him. Scarlet uses a whip to grab his hand before kneeing him straight in the face, rendering the knight a great deal of pain. Scarlet has sensed that Sigmund is intentionally stalling this fight for a reason. It's clear that he's got a goal in mind. He responds that he's just being careful. While it's clear that the church won't take extreme measures, even the church sensed the presence of demons in Libernos yesterday. Scarlet was here and knew everything. Sigmund responds that while they're looking to find his sister and the mysterious mercenary, they have a more important target at hand, that being Monte. She stops to listen to him. Scarlet confirms and believes that Monty is hiding somewhere as a direct witness to yesterday's incident. More important than the demons, she cares about the mercenary. She thinks he's trying to protect him. Sigmund confirms that she's been deceived in her understanding and attempts to rectify the situation. He claims not knowing any mercenaries in Libernos going by the name Monte. The same goes for the guy they're keeping captive. Scarlet maintains her grin, but she senses that he's telling the truth. But she can't place a finger on his actions. To what end and why is he doing so much as a knight? More than that, she's dying to shatter his resolve. One of the church's guards calls for Scarlet's attention to relay an important news regarding the disappearance of the detained mercenary. Let's go back a few moments before this whole shit show went down. Junwoo was upset by how little Sigmund helped. He's literally stuck in a damn labyrinth maze which is near impossible to solve. The only reason he seems to be doing relatively fine is because he's experienced it before in the actual game. Junwoo shifts the bed and finds the secret escape route. He manages to climb out of the suffocating shithole and lands behind the residence of the knights. Junwoo heard the whole scene went down before Sigmund's arrival. His objective was to secure Sepia, and he knows exactly where she is. One way would be to crash in guns blazing, but he can't do that right now. It's supposed to be a stealth mission where he doesn't come in contact with a single soul from either party. At the same time, he can't just be selfish and escape without taking Sepia along. The guy is starting to realize he's playing the game at max level difficulty. With nothing else in mind, he looks to his handy inventory for a solution. Junwoo could have grabbed some good stuff from the NPC character when he had the chance. He has a bunch of potions, but only one of them is going to help him survive this situation. It's the mystical transformation potion, which helps the user transform into a target and maintain the disguise for 10 minutes. So with his new disguise, the dude enters inside as Ted, a servant. He claims to have come here to meet Sepia and knock the original one down for it. Junwoo feels bad, but what has to be done must be done in this instance. He has retrieved Sepia's medicine from Sigmund and wants to help her out. Junwoo is glad that he ended up going for the transformation potion instead of staking his life on invisibility. He won't have to worry about opening doors anymore. He comes to Sepia's room and introduces himself as a servant of Sigmund. Sepia opens her room, only to get creeped the heck out by this random blonde guy. Before long, Junwoo's disguise disappears as the time limit expires. She has a bunch of questions right now, but it's not the right time to talk. They're in the middle of a really bad confrontation. Sepia can't believe her ears while our boy assures her that he's going to give her a good explanation on the way. Extending his hand, he asks if she still trusts him. Sepia happily rests her faith in his hands, confirming their alliance. Bro literally sprays the petrification potion right on her face. It's supposed to turn her to stone, which it does for 10 minutes. Next, this man pulls up his inventory and checks this out. He literally stores her inside the inventory as a statue. That's just funny. Over the Fantasy only forbids the players from placing living items inside the inventory. But after the process of petrification, they are classified as stone, and thus capable of being stored. This happened when our hardcore gamer stored a monster in his inventory. It's a secret he happened to stumble upon by chance, but a good one that's going to help him stay light on his feet. Junwoo exits the base and disappears from sight, and he hears about the Church of Luna causing an outrage over his disappearance. With both of the suspects disappearing at the same time, this will erupt in war between the opposing factions. It's all left for Sigmund to salvage. In the meantime, our boy is going to peace out from this location and never look back. His current destination is Estellum to meet Rudin's friend. Estellum, the city of the undead, awaits his arrival. Both of the silver-haired siblings were orphans from birth. They experienced a harsh childhood in the slums, barely clinging to each effort to survive. They experienced cruelty of great magnitude at the hands of many people. The criminals, the knights, the nobles, everyone. Back then, the back alleys of Libernas were known for their terrible security. Sepia ended up learning a harsh truth that day. That human nature always demands something in return when offering a hand. The both of them were once fooled by a man who nearly sold them as slaves. They also experienced deception by a noble who nearly traded them for drugs. Sepia developed a quality to doubt people and trusted only her brother Sigmund. That used to be the case until now. Until she met the red mercenary who showed his concern for her in each moment. Her hardened walls suddenly crumble when facing the light of this person. She still clings to the cold truth. That virtue is accompanied by some trade-off. But with his radiance, she has come to question her beliefs, that maybe she learned the wrong truth. Sepia awakens to find Junwoo concerned for her. She is free from the effects of petrification, but feels guilty for worrying both her brother and the mercenary. Sepia is sick and tired of acting helpless and wants to become stronger. Sensing her discomforted state, Junwoo wonders if something happened as a result of petrification. Sepia confesses the truth. She wants to become strong. She wants to become strong and support herself without needing any protection from outside. She wonders if it'd be possible if she journeyed along with him. Junwoo smiles before confirming that it would indeed be possible. However, he warns her that the suffering and difficulty of her trials will continue to increase from this point onwards. Sepia is happy and assures him she won't cry or back down. The red mercenary is happy to hear that, as he would rather she become dependable and strong. While Sigmund wanted her to be protected, it's clear that Sepia has fostered a determination for herself. He gets to the nitty-gritty details of their current situation. Takes a while, but after explaining everything, she learns that the people of the Moon Goddess Church are actually the real enemies, and that her powers are linked to the sun deity. Sepia knows that he could have escaped and prioritized his own life, but he chose to maintain his promise with Sigmund, and rescued her life. She's a little upset being unable to say her goodbyes with her brother. Junwoo tells her to cheer up, because they're destined to meet again someday. He also offers her a weapon to use for her protection. Junwoo unveils the crystal recurve bow, a weapon with no level restriction. It's also a unique item that can be paired with low physical stats. One could classify it as an artifact even. Ever since he stepped foot in Libernas, he wanted to start treating Sepia in a different manner. The bow fits her perfectly, as she's closer to the mage class and would require honing her accuracy. This sparks up bright expectations in his head. He wonders what else he should let her experience. Speaking of experiences, Sepia launches her arrow and kills a goblin at once. Then she aims at the second goblin and releases her arrow, a clean headshot this time. The second goblin is dead. Sepia leaps down to kill the final goblin. She attacks him from behind and senses a counter from the monster. She dodges the creature's attack and coats her arrows in fire magic, before launching it right in its eye. The pain staggers the goblin while Sepia jumps over and chokes its neck with all her might. The monster is suffocated and at last falls to the ground. This girl is tough as hell to take down a monster 5 times her size. She stands as a confident victor and smiles at Junwoo, who has a mixed opinion on her growth. He reflects that her rate of growth is insane because she's already adept in sharp movements. He was the one who thought of her for being too weak and fragile. She astonished him with her efforts, so he went the extra mile and for her. With only 15 days of training, she exceeded his expectations. Done with her training, she decides to go check up on any surrounding monsters. Junwoo leaves her to herself because this chick can defend herself. But her powers of the sun are still dormant, and if she masters them, then she could become really strong. Since she can't use that power at the moment, it's a problem. But it actually does activate every time she senses deep danger. Even before Junwoo's intervention, her powers go into overdrive and obliterate her enemies to ashes. But the side effect of using the powers of the sun is that she loses consciousness. The mercenary inspects her status window and discovers that she doubled her level in a short amount of time, but her class has yet to be revealed. He thinks of a way to unlock the information somehow and wonders if it is tied to a quest. Junwoo suddenly takes note of the bag that was dropped by the orcs. They're carrying a sickle, which means these guys lived in groups. There has to be an orc cave around here somewhere. Sepia worriedly asks if there's something troubling him. Junwoo murmurs the talks of an orc cave. He insists that they take a detour from Estellum for a temporary stop. Junwoo is deeply interested in meeting a certain witch, much to her confusion. In the game, witches are known to be mysterious between monsters and NPC characters. Some were treated as cultists who committed evil while there were good witches who gave the players quests to complete. Among them, the Shadow Witch stepped on the line, being the best of both worlds. She lived in an orc cave and boasts a level of 150. She may not seem like much, but the Shadow Witch is actually the disciple of the Witch of Equilibrium, the strongest witch in the entire game. Junwoo's mission is to uncover something about Sepia's condition and the root of her powers by consulting the Shadow Witch. Sepia asks if it's okay to really trust a witch. Junwoo replies that while they boast a bad reputation, it's true that their knowledge knows no bounds. At the same time, it's rather convenient that they're weak to flame magic, so he's more than confident that they could take her down in a fight. Junwoo has a plan to hopefully satisfy the expectations of the witch. Arriving in the Hafner Canyon, they both approach the orc cave. Inside, the Shadow Witch rests with her plethora of books. She receives a message from one of her familiars who has come to wake her up. The lazy witch yawns, questioning who came to disturb her. The crow informed her of intruders, which comes as a reason for her joy. She prepares the potato team to confront them, which I'll admit is a funny name. She tells the green potatoes to go and beat down the intruders and steal everything from them. She's banking on the hopes that they have a lot of money. The Shadow Witch is looking forward to enjoying delightful breakfasts soon. Back to Sepia and our boy, they peep at the cave from above. Junwoo is most confident that the witch already knows they've arrived. He thinks the only way they're getting to meet her is if they clear the wave of orcs first. Sepia rises to the occasion and considers it light work, but Junwoo stops her from rushing blindly. Before entering the fight, it's important to do map reading. Sepia wonders what he means by that, while Junwoo internalizes that the game uses map reading to increase the chances of winning. The level regarded for the canyon is 90. He is simulating a bunch of different tactics with Sepia. Having come up with a pattern, he instructs her to go for the guard post and approach defensively. The most orcs she can take at one time is 3. Any more than that and she will have to run. While Sepia doesn't want to run, she promises to be careful, which is a relief for Junwoo, who doesn't want her to get ahead of herself. He's happy to take care of the rest as long as she can control the guard post. Sepia gets in position and prepares to take her shot. On his signal, Sepia takes her shot and releases the arrow, striking down one of the orcs. With their target secured, they run down to attack again. Sepia is the aggressor and takes down another goblin, while Junwoo takes care of business from his side. Sepia has killed the orcs from her side, and Junwoo is grateful for her contribution in the fight. She drinks water to rejuvenate herself, and hasn't racked up any injuries. She's becoming more reliable as she fights and grows. Junwoo commands open the status window and sees both their levels. He's almost standing at level 100, while Sepia has already made half his progress in their short time training together. Junwoo intends to help her out with suitable equipment as she grows, and while he could have just chosen her equipment if he knew the class, it's not going to be worth it now because it is hidden. Still, she's an incredible archer despite bearing a secret class, but her weapon needs an upgrade. It needs to be powerful enough to kill enemies in one attack. Sepia turns to him and asks about the Shadow Witch, startling the red mercenary who was deep in thought. She asks if the Shadow Witch would be so kind to help them, especially after they've taken down these orcs. Rest in peace, potatoes. Junwoo agrees that the witch might get seriously angry for what they've done, which Sepia believes will become a problem if they want something from her. But our boy isn't too worried. He's always got a plan up and ready to go. As they enter the cave, Junwoo tells her that their objective is to avoid fighting. But Sepia doesn't want to take any chances and decides to stay on guard, ready to take on anything if things go south. Even Junwoo is a little surprised by her tenacity. The girl just doesn't want anyone to take an advantage over her. The system informs them that they've entered the orc cave. Strangely, it's gone all quiet, as if the orcs were wiped out completely. But Junwoo states that they still need to take care of the shaman, but they don't need to kill him. It's actually because the Shadow Witch has taken an interest in experimenting on him, so it would be unwise. Their main objective is to help explain the witch about their offer. Since they've already defeated the orcs outside, killing the shaman would cause real trouble in gaining her cooperation. Sepia asks just how they're going to achieve what they're after. Junwoo explains that their intention is to head to the witch's lab, instead of confronting the shaman head-on. He knows of a way around the place. Junwoo points to the shortcut cave leading to the witch's lab. Originally, this path gained a lot of attention on the game's forums when it was first discovered. This was primarily due to the fact that players believed it was some kind of bug. But soon after, the discussion concluded that it was an intentional action. Sepia, like any person would, questions how he knows so much about the place, especially with his first time coming here. Junwoo doesn't have a good answer and insists they crawl inside. He breaks the barrier from the other side and creeps his way like a little insect. Lo and behold, they have reached the witch's lab. Junwoo calls for the witch, who grins before breaking into laughter. Her annoying laughter is proof enough that they're facing the Shadow Witch. This annoying redhead is upset they killed her potatoes and hindered her research. Junwoo is glad that she's still having shortage of food from her side like usual. Even Sepia is a little concerned. The Shadow Witch, infuriated beyond hell that they tampered with her research, unleashes her fury and immediately goes into kill mode. Sepia has to arm herself at once, preparing for the worst to come. But Junwoo stops her with a different solution in mind. Bag in hand, he presents the witch with something that catches her attention. Junwoo breaks into his Eastern Doctor persona looking for her guidance and shows her the overwhelming amount of gold. Sepia is disappointed that this man's grandiose plan was basically just bribing a damn witch. As expected, the Shadow Witch isn't happy that the ones who killed her orcs are standing here with the gall to ask for her help. Junwoo apologizes, acting as if they didn't know about the orcs being her henchmen. He redirects her attention to the gold, which is super effective against the greedy little witch. It's just as they say, bitches love money. I mean witches. The witch is a gold digger who falls easily for the power of gold. All she's thinking about in her tiny little brain is how many hens could have for that money. All of a sudden, she remembers her teacher's words, who advised her to stay clear of money schemes and always prioritize her dignity. The Shadow Witch denies his attempt to bribe her, but Junwoo explains that this much is just for the orcs he killed. Then this guy pulls out the real treasure, which is the precious essence of fire. It's not just anything that you could find with ease. The NPCs and the players both love the idea of having it. But this guy, Junwoo, literally has hundreds of these things just resting in his god-level inventory. He's the Elon Musk of Essence of Fires. The respected Eastern Doctor tells her that he knows how valuable the Essence of Fire is for this land, but it's only an ornament back at his place. He's ready to supply her with a bunch of these bad boys for her cooperation, and that, my friend, is an offer you just can't refuse. Even the Shadow Witch is stunned and has no choice but to hear them out. She introduces herself as Evelyn Lapisse, the disciple of the amazing Witch of Equilibrium. Junwoo persists in his identity as Dr. Dio, and Sepia takes care of her greeting too. Evelyn seems to know the silver-haired girl from around somewhere. In fact, she boldly points out that she's the child who was born with the powers of the sun deity. Sepia's mouth is left open by this confession. Even Junwoo can't place a finger on how she could know such a thing. He suspects that the Shadow Witch must also be an ally and a member of the Order of the Sun. He curiously asks how she knows about Sepia, to which Evelyn replies that she heard from her brilliant teacher. The Witch of Equilibrium is one of the 7 stars of the Walpurgis Night, a group that Rudens 2 is a part of. The Walpurgis Night is a name Junwoo has never heard of before. Realizing that there's a bunch of things he has yet to know about, she decides to fill him in. Evelyn spots the essence of fire and takes the shiny object as her fee. Now for the lore regarding the Walpurgis Night. It's a secret group of 7 stars with the same goal. These 7 fragments are the most loyal and powerful servants of the sun. Junwoo relates this group to another one called the Pentagram, which consists of 5 powerful boss monsters in the game. The Witch of Equilibrium was originally supposed to be included in the Pentagram, however, so he wonders if both groups are similar or different in their respective rankings. Presently, only a handful of people even know about the power of the sun. It's difficult to uncover the traces of the deity. Finding such traces became the mission of the 7 loyal stars. Evelyn adds that the group was created for the purpose of sharing information, which leads the mercenary to intriguingly ask what would happen once they find those traces. Evelyn remarks that while she's also unaware, her teacher once told her that they plan to resurrect the sun deity to restore the order of the sun. It's quite the grandiose goal that alarms Junwoo. It's basically like rebelling against the dominant authority of the present world governed by Luna. This could potentially shift the entire story of the game. What's more, Junwoo has now confirmed that the game is constantly pushing him to pursue the path of the sun, so that his contribution could help the Seven Stars in their mission to restore the sun god. It wasn't even a while ago when he learned that he should oppose the moon goddess Luna, but now he's basically being pushed to the side of the Witch of Equilibrium, one of the main bosses and a representative of the Pentagram group. Junwoo muses about the possibility that all seven stars might be related and equal to the Pentagram, because then he would have a really good chance of opposing the Church of Luna and have a chance of winning. He curiously asks if the rest of the seven stars are also witches, but Evelyn has little to no information regarding that. The witches are known to conceal secrets regarding the sun deity. Yet, every single teacher under the Witch of Equilibrium dedicates a good chunk of their time to researching the power of the sun. That's also why these numbskulls love the essence of fire magic, as their research is centered around fire. Junwoo wants to know what they're researching about. Evelyn explains that they want to find the power of the sun that was once forgotten in deep history. Judging by her tone, Junwoo believes that Evelyn is displeased with the research. Agitated by this remark, she reveals that a 26-year-old witch shouldn't have any idea looking for a godly power that faded many years into the past. It's like asking for the impossible with peanuts of funding to rely on. Her mental breakdown is because the research has left her with nothing to live on, and she has to use orcs for her survival. Junwoo understands her frustrations. It's a similar feeling to when his fellow student was hating his current life about being unable to support his research with proper funding. Sepia breaks her silence and thinks about the bright side. She tells Evelyn that her teacher might place a lot of faith in her abilities, which is why she handed her such a mountainous task. The flattering remark makes Evelyn a fan of Sepia, and she confirms that she is indeed the youngest witch to have ever been named a Shadow Witch. Junwoo can't handle the Yap Festival and asks if the witch is capable of awakening Sepia's dormant abilities. Evelyn is unsure if she can pull something like that off. She scans her energy and senses a pool of violent emotions in the air. Evelyn asks if Sepia awakens her powers because of her feelings. The silver-haired girl confirms that she does, as her powers are always a result of an endangered state, a need for survival. Furthermore, her consciousness takes a hit each time she uses her powers, so it's more of a subconscious manifestation than a direct trigger. Evelyn believes that her powers might be more powerful than what she anticipated. At present, she can't do anything about her powers, which is a normal response to Junwoo, who thinks they've hit a wall. But the Shadow Witch has one more thing to add. She can help her control her subconscious state instead of going berserk. Alarmed, Junwoo is interested and asks how. Evelyn explains that she's going to use the power of the shadow to awaken another part of her consciousness. Her shadow is not just an imitation, rather, her duplicate bears a consciousness of her own. It's a completely different personality from her. So, what Evelyn can do is make sure that Sepia doesn't lose consciousness, and instead she becomes controlled by a second state of consciousness, instead of her main personality. But the suggestion sounds dangerous. Even Junwoo acknowledges the risks. Evelyn clarifies that Sepia won't experience any changes as multiple personalities can exist in a single person. The only thing that would experience a change is that one of them would lay dormant. Junwoo meditates on the complexity of the process. He's not exactly convinced, but considers it as a decent alternative. Sepia's powers would be helpful if she maintains her consciousness than without, so it's better than what she has now. Evelyn emphasizes that despite her conscious state, she will have to train in order to get a good feel and control over her powers. Sepia reveals that she doesn't know magic. The Shadow Witch recommends that she go down the same path of knowledge as the witches, but it wouldn't be right for her if she can't handle mana. Since mana is a universal factor in all beings, talent in an individual governs its control and power. Sepia requests to learn magic under the tutelage of the Shadow Witch. Junwoo smiles to see a more confident and ambitious side to her. Evelyn agrees and does something with her hand. Sepia has yet to experience any changes so far. Evelyn shrugs and almost gives up. She encourages Sepia that most people have the same reaction. People can't use magic if they can't even sense mana, which is the beginning of all magic. Even after sensing mana, it doesn't guarantee the usage of magic. Junwoo asks if her help would be vital to Sepia's learning. While there is a meditation technique that hones mana, it's going to take months of training for Sepia to master it. Still, they don't have so much time to waste and spend months with Evelyn. Since they're mostly done with what they want, Junwoo recommends they leave at once. But to his surprise, Sepia suddenly awakens something from her body, shocking even the Shadow Witch and leaving Junwoo speechless. She's going out of control and neither of them know what to do. The Shadow Witch is worried because all of her precious research is being burned to ashes. Sepia regains her personality and realizes she destroyed her research. Evelyn quickly casts her aqua cage magic to trap Sepia in water, putting out the flames. As she lets out a breath of relief, the witch is befuddled that Sepia can cast magic without being able to sense mana. Junwoo realizes that it might not be magic she's casting, but Evelyn confirms that it is, since it contained a fragment of mana. But instead of feeling mana from her own magic attack, what Sepia felt was warmth. She could have burnt down everything and all she felt was warmth. This leads her to realize that Sepia's mana has an ego, a rare phenomenon. Junwoo feigns ignorance, even though he clearly knows what it is. Evelyn excitedly states that it's going to be easier than ever to teach the girl magic. While she can't detect mana for itself, she can cast magic with the knowledge of mana theory. Junwoo reflects that Sepia's powers are actually quite similar to the average player. They can't detect mana either, but they can cast magic so long as they want to learn. It means that the only way to foster and develop her magic skills would be to train her level like a player. Junwoo asks how long it would take the girl to learn the magic theory. Evelyn explains that the process of learning is unique to the individual, but even the Shadow Witch took 6 months just to get the basics of it down. Junwoo is startled and somewhat annoyed that it takes too long, while Evelyn states that it's pretty fast even then. Since they don't have that much time to spare, Junwoo doesn't think it's viable to spend half a year with the witch. Another problem is the fact that they can't separate from each other. Surprisingly, the witch is happy to tag alongside them on their journey. Junwoo is taken aback by her sudden interest. He asks what would become of her research. Evelyn explains that it shouldn't be worried about since Sepia is the only thing that matters to her. She bears the powers of the sun, which is research in itself. Junwoo can't see himself shooting her down in persuasion either. It's true that Evelyn is trustworthy and reliable, so they can make use of her along the journey. The nervous Shadow Witch confirms that she won't pose any trouble on their journey and wouldn't dare harm Sepia if it came down to it. The mercenary turns to Sepia herself to ask for her opinion. The silver-haired girl is okay with her joining and even calls Evelyn her teacher. Flattered, she's more than happy to bestow her knowledge upon her new student, while Junwoo is getting third-wheeled on the side. The scene switches to a council room where important members of the Seven Stars are having a meeting. One person calls Rudens a fool for failing to mention an important incident during their last discussion. Another figure remarks that Rudens has been clumsy like always, but they still can't let something so important slide like that. They ask him about Sepia's whereabouts, to which Rudens explains that they must be on their way to the undead city of Estellum. The council isn't pleased with what he's done. Crassus thinks he sent them on a death mission. He can't find himself the patience, especially with one important member, Palchetto, missing. Crassus is enraged that they could lose such an important figure with the power of the sun on a reckless mission to Estellum. He prepares his weapon to strike down Rudens, but he has to be reminded by others that fights among the Seven Stars group are strictly forbidden. Crassus lowers his weapon but not his words. He wants to go to Estellum to ensure the child's survival. Rudens lets him do as he pleases. Let's go back to the two-man crew. I mean 3 since they've now gained a witch. The heroes have stepped in Petunia. It's the first time the Shadow Witch has experienced snow. She's not one to travel, as that isn't what witches do to avoid being burned by the people. Tough luck right here. Thank God we're in the 21st century. The only witch that is deemed capable of travel is the Witch of Equilibrium. Sepia is having a hard time facing the cold, but Junwoo seems to be doing well without any problems. They come across a cave which should help become their shelter for the meantime. An excited Sepia wants to help with the fire. She releases a bunch of fire in her hand and places it on the cast. Thanks to Evelyn's teachings, she's learning a lot about magic. Junwoo admits that her growth has shot up in the past 2 weeks they have traveled with Evelyn. Initially, he thought that she was just a walking yap festival with no brains, but turns out, Evelyn is a genius prodigy in what she does. The system tells him that he's making good progress, uncovering a lost religion of history. His quest is to learn more about his forgotten swordsmanship as well. Sepia and Evelyn are clocked the heck out, while Junwoo is contemplating about the journey ahead, about the friend they're supposed to meet. He suspects that this guy is also related to the Order of the Sun in some regard. He wonders if they would be part of the Seven Stars group, and if they would also behave like a regular game character. He doesn't know for sure, and he won't know until he gets there. But these past few days have offered great insights on his journey. Junwoo pulls out a potion and drinks it at once. It could actually only be found here, which is why he suggested they take camp in the cave. It grants him temporary benefits, like recovering some of his stats, which were depleted after forming a contract with Sepia. Speaking of Sepia, she wakes up shortly after. Junwoo explains that he was around here checking the cave, but the witch states that she could have done so with her powers easily. Junwoo doesn't trust magic that much, and the Shadow Witch mocks him for it. Sepia mentions that he does know how to use magic, but the Shadow Witch mocks him for being unable to teach magic, which means he lacks the knowledge embedded in magic theory. It's actually true, all Junwoo does is use skills without really knowing much about them. He inspects his status screen, and stuns the witch with his ability to use an inventory without casting an artifact. The Red Mercenary explains the secret behind his magic relies on ones and zeros, which is a really clever way of saying it's binary computer language thanks to the system. Anyway, he finds the arrows he was looking for. It's for Sepia, to have her geared up for the battle ahead in Astellum. To face those enemies, Sepia is going to use high-purity silver arrows for the job. Now a little spicy lore drops on Astellum. You see, this city has a motive, and it is Lumania. Naturally, they're going to confront vampires, and for that, they need to be geared up with silver. Rudens being a vampire lord, Junwoo inquires if the vampires also believe in the powers of the sun. Surprisingly, Evelyn explains that there are many factions within both witches and vampires, so they don't naturally believe in the power of the sun god. The vampires that operate aside from Rudens' rule are definitely going to attack them. Junwoo shoots the witch down by reminding her that her kind isn't a group of saints either. But at least they don't carelessly attack humans, she thinks. It doesn't stop them from raiding farms and stealing food, though. Junwoo has come to learn that they aren't going to cooperate with the bloodthirsty vampires, so he's going to feed them pointy silver weapons with love. Evelyn doesn't even get that silver happens to be the weakness of the vampires. Junwoo explains that one shot is all it takes to kill those bastards. But in hindsight, even witches would be affected by the same weapon. And so the time came at last. They stepped foot in Astellum. As creepy as it sounds, the city has a grave mounted right at the entrance. The scary factor is high with this one. Junwoo tells the Shadow Witch to mask their appearances with magic. After all, they need to lay low, especially when they're high on pursuit by the Church of Luna. The witch is more than happy to oblige. She changes their hair color and eyes, making these guys look like siblings. But it's not the best disguise, so Junwoo recommends they keep their hoods up. The first objective is to find lodging to stay, and then swing for a plan on what they should do next. In the next scene, they're enjoying the delicious soup of a restaurant. Now that their bellies are full, Sepia asks what they should do next. The blonde mercenary recommends they go for a new identity first to avoid suspicion from the church inquisitors. They need to alter names and make sure people don't find out about Evelyn being a damn witch. Junwoo suggests they take up work as mercenaries and gather a bunch of information. The Shadow Witch really likes this idea, as they're supposed to take on requests. It would be the best way to establish trust and fit among the people of the city. In reality, Junwoo is looking to grind his level and become stronger to level 150. While they're talking, a bunch of guards come out of nowhere. They heard about the Inquisitors who annihilated Libernas and changed it completely. One of them asks what happened to Sigmund, who's a really powerful knight. Sepia's world goes to horror when she hears that he was captured by the Inquisitors. They even took other people and put up a bounty on the capture of the ones who ran away. Realizing that the conversation may not be kind to Sepia, Junwoo recommends they keep moving. He's also curious why Sigmundin was unable to take down the Church of Luna. His strength and tenacity made him believe that this guy really could have stopped them. The Shadow Witch comes to learn that they faced so much trouble thanks to the mess Rudens left them in. The stupid fool put all their lives in danger, even though they were on the same side. It could have ended in a really bad way. His presence alone left traces that could be detected by the Church of Luna, giving them a reason to act. Evelyn still believes that there should have been a reason for the Seven Stars to act. But Junwoo is pissed because their intervention just made the whole thing a lot more difficult than it should have. Evelyn just can't follow his words. Entering the Mercenary Guild office of the city, Junwoo informs the receptionist that they're here to register as mercenaries. The man instructs them to place their hands on the crystal ball, which would assess their power. For his identity in this city, Junwoo introduces himself as Leo. Surprisingly, he's at D-grade level, while Evelyn is stuck around C-grade. With the registration process meeting its completion, the receptionist introduces them to the request board. There's hundreds of quests rallied up. They include hunting missions on vampires, zombies, and all other creepy monsters that normally wouldn't be found. Our hero takes a while, but he comes to the conclusion they should go for gathering requests. Yes, every single one of them. Evelyn's shocked that he wants to take up so many. Junwoo claims that he has somewhere to go, so he's fine with the two of them completing the gathering quests for the meantime. Sepia is starting to get used to his sudden disappearances, but she knows he must have prepared a plan of some kind. Junwoo inspects the chest icon and happily thinks to himself that they don't need to physically get anything done. After all, this guy's ultimate storage has every single item in the game that they could ever need. The receptionist is skeptical of their skills and thinks that no one can do so many requests in so little time. He recommends they drop a bunch of the gathering quests for other mercenaries. The Shadow Witch is tempted by the offer and easily folds, but Sepia pulls her out of it and explains that Junwoo has something planned and will take care of things. The receptionist struggles to forcibly take the quests from them, so he has no choice but to call in guards. The man himself returns to stop him from doing so. He throws one bag that's got every single item they needed from the quests. Junwoo insists that they'll complete those quests today, and the items he has brought are proof of the fact. The man stares at the materials, while Junwoo asks how long he's going to take to complete their transaction. The man spearheads his crew to get to work at once. He's more than happy to deal with stuff for him. Evelyn and Sepia are happy that things ended on a high note, but unbeknownst to them, a mysterious pair is secretly watching this go down. They racked up way too much gold in exchange for the quest items. Evelyn, being the cute witch she is, translates money to sacks of potatoes. Junwoo is happy to let her enjoy herself with as much money as she likes. Right now, he's in search of the experience points instead of the money. He's advanced 10 whole levels just for doing the quests. While they're talking to each other, two men chat about the man who did all those quests. They wonder if he's training to become a knight. Junwoo's impressive feat has attracted the attention of the ones around him, but at least his tracks are covered with his identity concealed. More importantly, Evelyn's a level 150 witch, so there shouldn't be much trouble. Also, Junwoo has a fancy new weapon now. Since way too many people have uncovered his ability to use explosion magic, Junwoo thinks it would be best if he conceals his skill and goes for a different weapon instead. The silver sword he has right now is extremely effective against the undead monsters. It's the perfect weapon for the city. Evelyn is excited and recommends they go shopping, who is cautious of the sun setting soon. The Shadow Witch is way too excited and wants to go and explore. Junwoo stops them from having their fun, while an irritated witch turns to question him. He has to remind them that the night could cause trouble. Evelyn doesn't seem to be getting his words, causing annoyance to Junwoo, who wants all his money back for her disobedience. Anyway, after much exhaustion, he crashes inside his room. He hears Sepia and Evelyn excitedly talking to each other and planning for their early morning trip. Junwoo is happy to hear them enjoying themselves. While he did raise his level without any trouble today, the mercenary hopes to prioritize his exercise training the upcoming days. While they're asleep, a bunch of thieves have come together to steal the lumps of money that our heroes made. They wonder if the guy is famous in some other city, and they're certain to steal from him. Sepia and Evelyn are resting in the other room, while Junwoo is staying by himself. Their plan is to enter from each opening and attack all together. These guys aren't ordinary robbers either. They want to kill them and leave no witnesses. His underlings are ashamed they have to kill the girls. They decide to split up into teams of 2. One group will kill the guy while the others will focus on the girls. The plan is in motion. Junwoo is asleep, so the 2 guys are seconds away from launching an attack on him. The countdown begins, and before they're even able to finish the count, one of them is slashed. Horrified, one of them tries to break in to kill Junwoo. He is prepared with his silver sword and slashes the guy down. He calls the girls to learn how they're doing. They seem to be perfectly fine and took care of the mess on their end. An annoyed Evelyn is unhappy they ruined a good night's sleep. Junwoo explains that they're dealing with the vile scumbags of the city, and he's glad that she's strong enough to kill them. But something bothers him. Junwoo recommends they stay on high alert. Evelyn can't wonder why, because not even her detection spell can pick up traces of any enemies nearby. Junwoo explains that there is someone coming to face them. This entity is chasing the smell of blood and is likely a monster. After all, both werewolves and vampires are cautious when it comes to the scent of blood. All that's left to guess is which one of them is after them. The figure steps forward, surprising all 3 of them. This figure is none other than the receptionist of the mercenary guild. Junwoo immediately wonders if he's some kind of vampire hiding amongst the humans. Instead of attacking them, he has come here to make a request. Roberto confirms that he's a vampire hiding in human society, which leads to Junwoo asking what he wants from them. The man has an urgent matter to discuss regarding his master. He's a vampire lord who coexists with the humans and never causes them any harm. However, because of his kindness, he always ends up suffering due to bloodthirst during every full moon cycle. Roberto serves his master by preparing blood for him on every occasion, and he even requested some, while other times he uses corpses to draw them. He chased the smell of corpses and ended up here, shocked that he found something even more special. Roberto points to Junwoo, declaring that his blood is the most special of all. The mercenary stands there confused because how would you even react to that? Roberto begs for a favor and requests to draw a tiny bit of the man's blood for his master. But before he's able to finish his sentence, his body is entangled by the magic of the Shadow Witch, who simply does not buy the idea of there being a vampire lord who chooses to coexist with humans in harmony. It's just an impossible idea. Roberto begs for his life and the well-being of his master. The Shadow Witch is pissed and wants to end this guy's life instantly, but Junwoo stops her and decides to hear more about the vampire lord. The man emphasizes that while he cannot speak in detail about his lord, he would be more than happy to arrange a meeting between the two in exchange for Junwoo's blood. Evelyn still thinks it's an outrageous deal and merely can't accept the grounds for that offer, while Sepia requests that they hear him out. Evelyn barks at Junwoo for even choosing to entertain the ramblings of a mad vampire who is requesting for something so vile. But our boy thinks she's playing too much of a saint for being a witch herself. In a state of contemplation, he does believe that a vampire lord must exist in this city, and it's probably the same guy even Rudens talked about. So, to Junwoo, it doesn't seem like a major setback to donate some of his blood to get closer to the person he was looking for in the city. The mercenary questions where his master is based and if it's a dangerous location. Roberto explains that he resides in the central camp of the Calic Forest. While it's not a safe location, Roberto gives them their word that he will escort them with safety. Junwoo immediately accepts the offer, making Roberto happy as a unicorn. He still doesn't want to offer him his blood until he's confident about it. Before leaving, Evelyn questions if this is a good idea. The mercenary explains that they're definitely going to be dealing with lots of werewolves and vampires in a territory like that. The central camp, however, is different. It's a place of peace where monsters coexist without causing each other harm. It's almost like a paradise. Sepia asks why Junwoo hesitated on going immediately. Boasting a smile, the man responds that they have to be ready to meet the vampire lord, which means a change of attire. Later that day, Evelyn ended up with her all-new mystical robe, looking fancy as hell. Junwoo comments that it's way better than whatever outfit she wore before. For Sepia, he's found a void amulet from his inventory to negate one lethal attack. She's happy to receive such a special gift. Junwoo reflects that he's already figured out the most crucial equipment, so it's time for them to hit the road. More about the Calic Forest. It's actually a nasty place filled with vampires and werewolves. Yet they both share their origins to humankind. It's only due to an unfortunate accident that led to the mutation of humans becoming vampires and werewolves. With no place left to go, they were chased into the forest. Still, two predators of the opposite species couldn't live in peace, as both hunted humans to survive. There were countless conflicts between werewolves and conflicts, which annihilated both races. And thus, the idea of a central camp came to light. A place of mutual coexistence where neither side attacked the other. Arriving in the main cabin, Roberto points out to them that this place is his master's lair. Junwoo is astonished because he recognizes this location. It's the hideout of the herbalist, an extra character in the game helpful to the players. It turns out that the herbalist was the vampire lord all along. It's no different from Rudens' story, who was supposed to be a mob character in the game, only to end up being a secret vampire lord in reality. Roberto tells his master that he's brought some visitors. The vampire lord is revealed to be a radiant yet mellow old man who senses the specialty of Junwoo's blood. He instructs Roberto to fetch some tea for his friends and invites them inside. Junwoo fixates on his words and wonders if the man recognized Sepia by any chance. What's more is that the vampire lord recognizes Evelyn among the group, who is overjoyed to meet Sir Schubert. He knows her from a while back and even asks about her teacher's health. Junwoo draws the connection and wonders if Schubert is also one of the 7 stars. Sharing a meeting together, the vampire lord formally introduces himself as Schubert Einhauer. He is in fact the person who Rudens told them about. It appears that he knows Sepia and Junwoo. More specifically, he is drawn to the silver-haired girl's resembling appearance to a person he once knew. Junwoo asks his curious question about his connection to the 7 stars. Schubert confirms that he belongs to the council despite his weak state. In a complete and unexpected twist, Junwoo openly declares his distrust of the group. Roberto views the insult and shouts back, but Schubert maintains his calm and confronts Junwoo's suspicions about the group. The mercenary also apologizes for his sudden blabbering, but he just can't forgive Rudens for jeopardizing them in Libernas, not after what he did. At this point, Junwoo is trying to figure out if the 7 stars are allies with each other, or if they are each willing to accomplish their own separate goals by using them. The system confirms that he's currently meeting a person of forgotten history, and so Junwoo trusts only that. He wants to know about the forgotten powers that he gained. Schubert thinks it's an easy answer, but he stands up and declares that he will have to test if Junwoo truly is the key to their mission. The vampire lord confronts our boy in a one-on-one standoff. Junwoo is yet to comprehend what he's being tested on, and asks if it's supposed to be a matter of showing his forgotten power. The man shakes his head in disapproval, and explains that Junwoo doesn't boast the power of the sun, a revelation that comes as a shock to the mercenary. Schubert proceeds to attack the nearest wall, crushing it with his bare fist. But Junwoo doesn't get this show of strength. He doesn't understand why this man is trying to flex or some shit. After all, many opponents over level 300 could easily pull that weak shit off with ease. He wonders if this is the limitation of the strength of the 7 stars. Schubert invites the boy to come and take a closer look because he's clearly missing something in his evaluation. Junwoo draws near, only to see the entire wall crumbling to nothingness. This is what he means by the power of the sun. Schubert happily asks if Junwoo can replicate such strength, which he obviously can't, and our boy is humble enough to admit. Schubert asks if he's interested in mastering this amazing power. Junwoo, now paying respect to the old man's name, asks if he could hone his power of the sun through training. Schubert confirms that if he is the key, then he should be able to. Junwoo is getting sick of being called a damn key, not knowing what it even means. He wonders if it has anything to do with the fight with Dark. Still, he has more pressing matters to worry about than his role. Junwoo requests to wield his strength, and Schubert is happy to hear it from him. But before that, it's imperative they take care of his blood. Inside the cabin, Schubert explains that the apostles of the sun were cursed. Out of every servant, he's the most affected one of all. That's why he tends to unleash himself to a berserk state every full moon. Junwoo considers this quite the strange behavior coming from a vampire. It seems like that they will be here for a while to learn. But Evelyn doesn't want to miss out either, despite having a great teacher of her own. The Shadow Witch wants to learn as well, so Schubert is okay with her tagging along. Their true training will begin tomorrow. The following day, Evelyn is horrified that the only source of nutrients in this damn cabin are vegetables. What's more is that they extracted quite a bit of her blood yesterday, so she lacks the strength to continue normally. Schubert comes to learn about her disgust, but seeing him, this witch switches up like crazy and immediately switches sides. Junwoo observes that Evelyn has the senses to live in normal human society without fail, but he's a little underwhelmed to find that Schubert is a vegetarian vampire, and wonders if it has anything to do with his insanity during a full moon. With their meals concluded, the training is about to begin. The vampire lord explains that he has to inspect the boy's specialty before the training. Junwoo understands his objective and showcases his display of strength by cutting down a tree into half a dozen logs. While his strength is impressive, it's nothing new to Roberto. So he takes it up a notch and slices the logs with his mark skill, annihilating them in a fiery finish. Since he used the skill for the first time in front of Evelyn and Schubert, they're both amazed. But more or less, it's the extent of his powers, as Junwoo doesn't have much to show in his arsenal. The vampire lord comments that his swordsmanship brings fresh memories of Dark the Death Knight. Curious to know more about her, the mercenary inquires and learns that she was a brilliant knight, who represented the sword and shield of the sun. But despite all her talents, she was cursed like the rest of the 7 stars, and her fate led to becoming a Death Knight. Unfortunately, it was the only reason they could not look for her. The vampire lord is a martial arts fighter, so he can't really teach him much about a sword. At the same time, he can allow Junwoo's powers of the sun to develop in his body, especially since he follows in the footsteps of the Golden Knight. The difference between a normal mana user and a user of the sun is that they can hone great strength even without innate talent. The reason for that, as Schubert demonstrates with his sun powers, is that the power of the sun is reliant on light magic. It doesn't cater to the energy found inside the body, but specifically utilizes the light of the outside world. This helps the user to absorb the sun's powers, and then release a powerful beam of destruction that could be discharged in various ways. Junwoo is left colorless in his expression, as not even the best of his explosion skill could come close to Schubert's magic. The vampire lord wants to help cultivate an understanding of such power for Junwoo, who senses that his journey ahead will be filled with Har's training. But one thing is clear. He wants to hone and master the powers of the sun. With an optimistic attitude, Junwoo is prepared to do what it takes. 3 days have passed since their training began. Junwoo was practicing focused meditation, but he's having trouble mastering it. The vampire instructed him to meditate under the sunlight and get a grasp of the sun's power. Unfortunately, there's no way around this painful method, so Junwoo has to experience it with patience. But his thoughts are disrupted by his surroundings as both Sepia and Evelyn and muttering about in stamina training. As expected, the Shadow Witch is terrible when it comes to endurance training, while Sepia is at the top of her league since she always prioritizes stamina training with Junwoo. They were instructed to kill monsters in the forest, so the mercenary curiously asks if they hunted any. They successfully beat 2, but the witch isn't too happy since it nearly cost them their lives. Schubert banned her from using shadow magic, making it more difficult than ever to beat the monsters. Sepia, being the optimist as always, thinks that their teacher is doing enough. He did restrict them, but it was for their own good. Schubert instructed them to focus on sunlight as if it is always with them, even when it is hidden from through the trees. Then he told them to use magic spells that catered to light and fire elements. The monsters in the forest are really powerful, so even Evelyn would have trouble dealing with them without her special shadow magic. Junwoo is hoping that the vampire lord is protecting them in secret in case something bad happens. Sepia wants to know how much progress he made with his training. In his conversation with Schubert, the vampire explained that his mark skill is an application of the sun. So that means all he needs to do now is focus on the fundamentals in order to grasp the true power. The essence of the skill Mark relies on is the absorption and discharge of light. This much Junwoo is already well aware of, but he struggles with the idea of using his skill without using the system's help, as that's the troublesome aspect of it. Junwoo, even though he used the mark skill all night without being forced to use potions, he still can't feel much in his case. After the training, even Roberto is fed up with Evelyn's large appetite. They both fight every day like children. Schubert suggests they get along well with each other, while Junwoo inquires why he still works as a herbalist. Schubert explains that the rest of the 7 stars are busy leading their personal factions, as Rudens commanded the Golden Dawn, while the Witch of Equilibrium is commanding the Witches. He thinks it is wise to create such factions in order to restore the power of the sun. He's got a bunch of friends like that of his own. Schubert explains that it's because of his curse that he stays a herbalist. The mercenary realizes that his condition may be more serious than he anticipated. Normally, vampires and werewolves give in to their instincts under the full moon, but Junwoo thought that a powerful being like Schubert shouldn't have any trouble dealing with the condition. It happens to be that he was a monk before his cursed fate, so he untethered himself from the world's belongings and human desires. There he swore upon an oath never to harm others. Schubert is a principled man who refused to let go of his values even after becoming cursed. He isolates himself to protect others and can't lead a group with his unstable condition. Junwoo wants to know more about what happened in the past, even though they decided to talk about it after his training. The mercenary is having trouble visualizing a strength that he has never known before. At last, the vampire lord reveals that someone like him suffers with the problem of knowing too much. Since he's dabbling with so much information in his mind, he's prone to overcomplicating things. Schubert exemplifies Sepia, who learns things quickly because she doesn't assume to know anything. That's why Sepia is starting to get a hold of her powers. While Junwoo never thought about it initially, he's starting to get intimidated by Sepia's insane growth and talent. Schubert emphasizes the focus of meditation, not because he couldn't sense any energy, but rather to clear the boy's mind. Junwoo realizes from this analysis that he struggles to let go of pointless thoughts in his head. He's not wrong, as ever since coming to this world, Junwoo has always been in a state of contemplation. He's thinking about so much all at once, hindering his understanding. Anyway, it's time to meet the newest inquisitor of the Luna Church. Galeto Hungestus is enjoying his share of alcohol at one of the bars. Suddenly, he hears gossip from one of the men. They're talking about the disappearance of the bandits who met their end by the 3 mercenaries. Galeto immediately swoops in on their discussion and starts his interrogation. A bunch of monsters come pouring out from the forest while Junwoo is busy in his training. Focusing to clear all of his thoughts, he stands firm and decides to fight a different way. This time, he will fight without the system's help. He slashes the monster, but the skill doesn't even activate and barely grazes the creature. This leads to a tough battle where Junwoo has to be on the back foot. He visualizes the power of the sun, but his mind is too distracted to care for the vicious werewolf from behind. Junwoo barely defends himself on time, only for another werewolf to come rushing towards him. Right now, if he used any of his abilities, he could defeat these monsters with ease. It's a 2-on-1 battle and the odds aren't in his favor. Evelyn wonders if they should jump in and help the dude while he's struggling. But Sepia assesses the situation and decides to place her faith in his strength. The werewolf attacks Junwoo with its claws and sends him on the back foot. He empties his mind and harnesses the power of the sun, instead of using the game's strategies that he previously used. Remembering the vampire lord's advice to meditate under the sun, he thinks he's found the answer. Junwoo slides past the werewolf to aim for the tree and slashes it with his sword. The tree is cut down, revealing the rays of the sun and strengthening his sword. Junwoo has acquired just a little bit of his power and aims his golden sword at the enemy. Just like that, he leaps up ahead and lands a decisive slash utilizing the power of the sun. It's a perfect hit, impressing his friends while shocking himself. But instead of attacking again, the guy surprisingly drops his weapon, much to Evelyn's bewilderment. There he stands, with the power of the sun embodied in his aura. Junwoo becomes a martial artist and chucks a heavy fist up the werewolf's abdomen, causing it wailing and disorienting pain. At last, he snaps his fingers, releasing a column of explosion on the monster's body, the same attack that Schubert used when demonstrating the power of the sun. He's finally accomplished it, and Sepia's trust in him has increased as a result. His current skill evolution conditions are all near completion. He's also figured out the 4th condition, and he's more than happy to grasp an understanding of the sun's power. The boy is surprised when he learns that he's still partial in his understanding of the sun. There's still more than what he learned so far. But his friends are happy that he made stellar progress. It's a good thing that he managed to awaken his powers and increased Sepia's trust. Before he's able to ask about Sepia's training, Junwoo feels a crushing sensation inside his heart. It's a side effect of using his powers, and it's so bad that he coughs blood before fainting unconscious. While he's knocked unconscious, Junwoo experiences a dream where a silver girl resembling Sepia offers a prayer, hoping for the coming of a hero in the time of doom. He wakes up in a panic, only to find Schubert and his friends by his side. He was knocked unconscious for half a day, and thankfully, not more than that. The vampire lord congratulates him for finally being able to grasp the full power of the sun. However, in his effort to understand the power, he exceeded his limitations and put his life in danger. Junwoo assures that he can further his understanding now that he has gotten a good grasp of his power. For the first time, the vampire lord expresses anger and tells him that it is unwise to get arrogant when he's merely at the beginning stages. Both Sepia and Junwoo are speechless seeing this side of him. Well, now that he's understood the sun's power a little bit, it's time to learn what happened in the past. Schubert explains what being a key means at first, but suddenly he senses a sharp feeling coming from outside. Enraged, Schubert emphasizes the both of them to stay put. As for Evelyn and Robert, he redirects them to the other room. Schubert ushers them away in his impatience, while Junwoo wonders who could be troubling them at this time at night. A strong explosion follows as Galeto makes his mark. He wasn't expecting to find what he was looking for in a useless cabin. The man introduces himself and asks if Schubert is the owner. The vampire lord is armed for battle, while our gamer wonders how this guy ended up here of all places. Galeto isn't just a nobody, he's one of the strongest swords of Luna. What's more, he doesn't care about faith, all he cares about is fighting really strong opponents. Even someone like Monty shouldn't have invited this level of threat, so Junwoo wonders what brought this powerhouse here of all places. Evelyn is quick to become annoyed, but the vampire lord directs her to leave, despite her desire to stay. Schubert plays a nice guy and explains that he's nothing more than a herbalist. Hearing his clear excuse, Galeto laughs in the man's face and expresses that he's looking for people instead of herbs. He senses a strong energy residing in the cabin, and it seems to be coming from both Sepia and Junwoo. Without even showing a hint of mercy for the man's life, he chucks a fist right in Schubert's gut, surprising him with a sudden attack. Galeto reveals that he knows about the old geezer's real identity. Roberto jumps in to attack, but this dude gets bitch-slapped by a backhand. Evelyn is next in line, who harnesses the power of shadow magic to release a powerful shadow arrow. The result? Galeto catches it casually, shocking even her. He didn't expect to find both vampires and a witch under the same shed. Schubert activates the power of the sun, and I kid you not, this man literally looks like he's going Super Saiyan with that blonde hair. Galeto is giddied up, expecting a strong fight to come to him. He launches Schubert away, rendering him in a critical state. It's clear that they stand no chance against this guy. The vampire lord is prepared to hold him down until the others can escape. Junwoo wonders if he's going to be fine, but the old man shares no vision of quitting easily. He recommends they make haste, so Junwoo quickly grabs Sepia and tells Evelyn to grab Roberto. They will have to escape without Schubert for now. Sepia asks about the intruder's identity, and comes to learn that he's one of the 5 swords of the Luna Church. She's horrified that a person of such terrifying strength is chasing after them, and she's also worried about Schubert. Evelyn can't stand to lose her master, but Junwoo insists that they have to run away as it's the only choice they have. The Shadow Witch can't accept just doing nothing. Junwoo shares his personal desire to fight and wants to go back for him. Back to the fight, Schubert is having a really tough time dealing with Galeto, who is giving him a damn beating to no end. But still, he can't find himself being entertained by a person with such weak strength. He intends to end the fight quickly, but then Galeto sees an unexpected visitor. The mercenary from before has returned to face him. He taunts the man to come for him, even though Junwoo is clearly nervous about the fight. Galeto doesn't want to be interrupted and tells him to wait his turn. Junwoo taunts him again, leading the man to roar into a giant laughter. He appreciates the boy's courage and turns to face him head-on. The defenseless Schubert tries to stop him and tells him to run, but the mercenary isn't the type to back down. He recommends that he stay silent, and well, Galeto knocks him out, so I guess that wasn't hard to achieve. Galeto plans to hold back because he wants to test Junwoo at his own level. So, the fight begins as our favorite mercenary releases his first ever attack, but it's really nothing more than a weak attack. Galeto wants to return him the blow, but what he didn't expect is that Junwoo planned to release his explosion magic, blinding him greatly. Such a weak attack clearly isn't enough to beat this guy. While Junwoo lunged forth in his created opening, a fist came flying near his face. He dodges the attack in mere seconds. Thankfully, he was able to anticipate Galeto's strike, giving him just the opportunity to cut him from behind. But even his full-powered strike wasn't enough to pierce the man's heavy armor. Galeto tosses him around as if he were nothing but a rag doll of his entertainment. Junwoo spills a unique potion of gold all over him, adding to the warrior's confusion. It's showtime, as the potion was also marked, causing Galeto insane burns all over his body. He used the magic oil specifically produced by magicians, and yet, despite his best attacks, Galeto's relentlessness eventually gets the better of our hero. He grabs the mercenary and pummels him straight down. His attacks are so heavy that Junwoo coughs blood just holding on, but for his opponent, he doesn't seem weakened at all. The mercenary's ankle is done for, and his health is lingering around half of what it should be. It's just impossible to win this fight head-on. But there's a reason he took on an opponent leagues above him, and it's because of Galeto's attribute. This warrior never really kills the players. In the original game, people had a lot to say about him in the forums. This guy was prone to attack the players the moment he saw them, but then, he would never really mark the killing blow. All he liked was the prospect of fighting strong opponents. So if someone boasted really strong abilities, he would even let them go, and that's what Junwoo is hoping to accomplish. He finally releases his strong flames, exciting the warrior who wants to know more about the mercenary's strength. Junwoo concentrates all of his energy in a single attack, concentrating every last one of his strength and creating a more powerful sun slash from before. This leads to the creation of a new skill, the heaven-piercing Moonfang. Junwoo finally swings his weapon, releasing an enormous amount of energy upon his opponent. While he delivered the attack, it caused him an intense backlash from the effects of the sun. Junwoo is confident that something of his caliber should greatly push back even Galeto. He did manage to tank the attack and doesn't seem to be much affected, but it did move him to some extent. Right now, Junwoo is hoping for his game's effects to kick in. He wants Galeto to stand down and acknowledge his skills based on his personality. The man finally confesses, but instead of acknowledgement, it is shame he focuses on. It's a completely different reaction from the game, surprising Junwoo, who wonders if it's because he's the servant of the sun. Galeto doesn't seem to share any intentions of letting him survive, so now, his only options are to run. But Junwoo's condition is beyond what he can handle. In fact, his wasted blood is released and poured into Schubert. It's the use of blood magic. Now that he's acquired the special blood of the boy, the vampire lord stands taller than ever. Schubert undergoes an interesting transformation. He becomes a werewolf more powerful than any other. The werewolves of the forest are all drawn to his howl, and they rush to attack Galeto, who is happy to take them all down. Even Junwoo is stunned to discover this twist. Schubert wasn't a vampire lord all along. It's clear now why he resisted his berserk state so much. Junwoo turns to the werewolf next to him, who gets eviscerated in a clean hit. The Shadow Witch has come to rescue him. She gathers Junwoo and explains that werewolves are capable of seeing past her shadow stealth. She casted a spell on Sepia as well as Robert for their safety. Evelyn learns from him about Schubert's berserk state, while Galeto keeps pounding every werewolf in his path. The Mad Knight thrusts his powerful fist in the ground, causing a shockwave effect that takes out all of the werewolves at once. Now that he's cleaned up the place a little, he fixates his attention to the others. Schubert is the only werewolf standing, and even Galeto knows that it's going to take every last bit of his strength to take him down. This guy goes for the heavy attack immediately, dishing out a heavy blow on his body and sending waves of destruction. Schubert's transformed state blocked his powerful punch, showing that it's going to take a lot more than that to take him down. Galeto keeps yapping, but this idiot didn't expect to receive a critical attack in return. Galeto is sent flying outside of the cabin, barely clinging on. It's his first time facing a threat of such level. Schubert lunges forth to claw him down. His deadly and vicious sharp strikes put him on the defensive. Galeto is receiving damage from every attack, but he senses the right opportunity and tackles the werewolf. Just when Galeto thought he had become the victor of the battle, the werewolf grabbed his tiny little hand before shoving him into the ground. Now, Galeto is having real trouble standing on his feet. He's the one who can't get up. Schubert sees Junwoo and the others running away in the meantime. The mercenary finally learns about the true strength of the 7 stars. He can get behind the reason Schubert avoided going berserk, because in this state, not even they are safe from his wrath. Evelyn is scared as hell that this monster will start chasing them too. Junwoo states that they don't stand a sliver of a chance running away, so their only option is to reduce his bloodlust. Schubert seems to be experiencing a trembling inner conflict. Junwoo wonders if he's trying his absolute best to fight back against his instincts. His own condition spells doom, because Junwoo's body has experienced a lot of damage, but he doesn't see any other opportunity to survive. Sepia worriedly asks about his plan. Despite the danger, Junwoo explains that their only chance of survival is to help Schubert rediscover his senses. Evelyn and Sepia are prepared to join the fight, as well as Roberto, who cares for his master. What's worse is that it starts to pour, adding more difficulty in their struggle. Evelyn points them towards an approaching figure, someone they weren't expecting. It would be bad if this person turned out to be their enemy after all. Junwoo immediately recognizes the guy's face. He's an archer-type warrior who prepares his arrow to strike down the beast. After releasing the arrow, it goes directly to strike Schubert's berserk state down. The archer stays standing, questioning if his attack had any effect on the beast. Thankfully, Schubert has returned to his normal human state. The mysterious archer then turns to Junwoo, inquiring if he's the special key they have all been talking about. He insists that they leave at once, and they're going to the Walpurgis Night, the dominion of the 7 stars. Somewhere, someplace, a man that governs the Black Mages is frustrated by Victor's failure to capture Sepia. The human sacrifice was rendered useless. He learns from one of his henchmen about Sepia traveling with the same mercenary who killed Victor. So, he instructs his men to find those two before the Church of Luna gets to them. Back to our heroes. Crassus is the one who saved them from Schubert's berserk state. Junwoo is recovering from his condition. He's been brought to Tempberg, where the gathering of the 7 stars takes place. The mercenary wants to personally thank Crassus for saving their skin. He receives a drink from Roberto and learns that this guy was out for 2 whole weeks. Yeah, that sounds insanely surprising, but that's just a result of his condition. Overusing the power of the sun led to severe consequences. Junwoo is recommended to receive a month's worth of treatment before getting back to health. Schubert also used his herbs to speed up the recovery process. The old man, despite his battle injuries, cared so much about Junwoo while he was down. The Shadow Witch also helped with her superior knowledge, but this dude feigns ignorance to her efforts. He's currently focused on Crassus, who was one of the members of the Pentagram group in the original game. This dude is the real deal, as he's responsible for bringing down the World Tree. At that time, the elves reigned supreme, but after Crassus incinerated the tree with his flames, he became an enemy to the elves, his own kind. He's not someone you can consider a friend, but in this circumstance, he became their benefactor and saved them from doom. Junwoo asks about the missing member, Sepia. The Shadow Witch tells him that he's busy training in some unknown location. Junwoo thinks she can't have gone too far away because of their contract. He's utterly shocked to find that she's already reached level 150 in 2 weeks. This girl is an absolute monster. This is what happened in 2 weeks of Junwoo's unconscious state. When they arrived in Tempberg, Sepia figured they could relax under the supervision of the 7 stars. But Crassus emphasized that they stay sharp instead of relaxing too much. Sepia thanked him, and from there Crassus figured she must be the same girl Rudin spoke highly about. She's annoyed by her own weakness, as she couldn't become an ally to Junwoo during his battle. It was then she requested Crassus to train her to become stronger. It stemmed from a desire to one day rescue Sigmund, her dear old brother. Crassus questions what benefit it would do to him by training her. He thought that training a human girl would be pointless and merely ignored her request. So she stormed the physical approach and explained that her powers are needed by the 7 stars. The power they seek from her is nothing more than a curse she had to struggle her entire life. So this time, she wants their help to become stronger. She even taunts Crassus for giving up early and expecting much of him. Since he's one to accept a good challenge, Crassus tells the others to take care of Junwoo and lead Sepia someplace else. To be honest, this courageous front of hers really surprises Junwoo, who learned everything from Evelyn. The girl ended up receiving incredibly harsh training from Crassus, and that's why she was able to climb to level 150 in such a short time. Junwoo doesn't have to worry about her anymore, so he decides to check his personal stats next. From the skill window, he learns that his mark skill has undergone an evolution. The skill he used in battle evolved with the addition of the power of the sun. It's still an incomplete skill and requires more experimentation. What's even more surprising is Junwoo's personal skill level, which has risen to level 200 out of nowhere. He was merely the same level as his friends in the forest. But now, every single stat has increased. He decides to check his system notifications, hoping to find an answer there. Junwoo figures that there's only one reason he gained an enormous amount of experience points, and it's because of Galetto's defeat. But surprisingly, back in the forest, Galetto wakes up after the fight with his head hurting. He sees an amulet, the artifact that Luna gave him. It saved him from suffering a brutal end. The man remembers just how terrified he felt in his final moments against the werewolf. Galetto laughs. It's the first time he has ever experienced a true loss against an opponent. Now, he's more pumped than ever to square off against Schubert a second time, but only this time, he will make sure to win. Junwoo ignores his condition and gets up to leave, much to the dismay of his peers. He asks about the 7 stars, who seem to be in a room with Schubert. Junwoo realizes that they're in a damn castle, the center of Tempberg. He gets up and leaves, hoping to visit a restaurant later. Evelyn reminds him that he might get roasted for roaming around, but our boy claps back and roasts the living shit out of the witch. Junwoo doesn't want to be followed and insists that she stay put. He wants to increase his intelligence by acquiring information by himself. He's explored for a while, but there's not much to see. A bunch of these places just look like they're average guest rooms. Junwoo comes across a place that he shouldn't normally visit. He wonders if he should explore this place and find something hidden. Junwoo lurks in the basement and curiously wonders what would be hiding here. He uses a light to direct his path. The stairs don't seem to know any end. He's starting to get chills just wondering what kind of vicious monster is waiting for him below. Junwoo finally spots a mural, and what do you know, he gets 3 million intelligence points for discovering the place. He wonders what the empty space represents. A person calls him out from behind, who was suspiciously hiding their presence throughout this time. Junwoo points to the light and asks if he's speaking to another member of the 7 stars. The redhead is surprised that he isn't afraid. His expressions are hard to read, but this man is Kalpael, the curator of the mural. Kalpael seems to have a passion for music and asks if he could play a song. But the mercenary is uninterested and asks about his status as the mural guardian. Kalpael explains that he merely protects the mural. Normally, an intruder isn't allowed to enter this place. But Junwoo happens to be the key, the only person who has the abilities to open the door. Confused, he asks for more information. Kalpael thinks he should experiment for himself, and without explaining anything, he sings a song. Junwoo wonders if his blood is the only way to open the secret door. He doesn't believe in any other explanation and steps ahead. Offering his hand in front of the keyhole, Junwoo suddenly feels a sharp sting and backs off. He wonders what's going to happen next, but strangely, nothing even happened. Junwoo spots a radiant beam of light. It's actually the dimensional fissure from the first chapter. It's the only place where players can communicate with one another. Now even more curious, Junwoo asks where the door leads to. Kalpael is one confusing bastard and hints that Junwoo knows more than them all. Kalpael adds that his reaction is proof of the fact that he knows something about the portal. The man confirms that none of the 7 stars boast the ability to cross the dimensional gate, but Junwoo is different. He has opened the door and proved himself as the key. All of a sudden, Junwoo is starting to doubt his words. It makes no sense for the dimensional fissure to pop up in a random location like this. With all of his suspicions, he thinks it's best to consult the other 7 stars before making a move. He tries to back away, but Kalpael is much too insistent. In fact, this guy literally shoves him away, revealing his true motive. Junwoo is absorbed by the portal and finally crosses dimensions. At last, he meets the deity of the sun, Solari. He doesn't know where he is. It's just an empty space. Unlike the dimensional gate he knows. He wonders if this is a trap, but before long, Junwoo is teleported to a different location. He's back at the temple, and it really wasn't a trap. Junwoo contemplates his purpose when he hears a strange voice calling for him inside his head. The sun goddess speaks to the one who has crossed dimensions and reveals herself at last. She is the one goddess who was forgotten by the world. Junwoo at this point is still skeptical of her words, but Solari makes it clear that she only wishes for his happiness. It's a strange admission, so the mercenary asks why she's residing in this dimension. Solari explains that a millennia ago, she was stripped of her powers because of Luna, her sister. She betrayed the light and became more powerful than the sun. With the remainder of her lifespan, Solari created a safe haven for her to hide. Also, she doesn't know a thing about the dimensional fissure he keeps mentioning, as it is only an object inside the game, unknown to the game's characters. This also implies that the system exists in a higher plane than the sun goddess. Junwoo wants to return to his original world, but she has no answer for that either and apologizes. Since she's open about speaking to him, Junwoo asks about why he became a key among all of her worshippers. Solari explains that her children are incapable of using her power. That means the reason he's chosen is because he's free from the effects of the curse. He has crossed a completely different dimension, so the normal rules don't apply to him. Junwoo wants to learn everything about the war and what went down. Solari offers him an explanation. After the world came to light, both sisters wanted humanity's prosperity. But in the end, the period of peace was taken from them when the Demon King arrived. Latimos was an emperor who dominated over the evil gods, a being of darkness who had the intention of eliminating all light. They were forced to face him, and so the brave warriors among her followers rose to fight. But during this great battle, Solari had forgotten about her sister's jealousy. She ended up joining the Demon King for a collective attack, overwhelming them greatly. Then, after betraying Solari, Luna faced the Demon King herself and killed him while he was weakened. But even at that point, the Demon King wasn't truly dead. His powers were sealed, and in recent years, he is slowly recovering his powers. Junwoo wonders why Luna failed to crush him completely. The only answer for that is because she desired more power and waited for the Demon King's revival. In her lust for power, it's possible she would devour the continent in an apocalypse. Junwoo asks what role he can play in stopping the world from going to hell. Solari tells him that he's the chosen one who can harness the full powers of the sun. He's the one who will succeed her greatest servant to regain peace. He's unsure if his strength will be enough to stop both Luna and the Demon King's revival, but Solari is confident that he can accomplish such a monumental battle by growing with her avatar. And now, for the major plot reveal. Sepia is literally the avatar of the sun goddess herself, and it was fated for the two to meet. Still, Junwoo believes it's going to be a tough battle even with Sepia. The sun goddess understands his worries, and explains that she has no desire to force his hand. Junwoo assesses the weight of his choice. If he refuses, then he wouldn't be forced into fighting gods and dealing with such a harsh fate. But still, eventually, the world will be thrown into chaos because of Luna. The mercenary can't sit around while things go bad. He accepts the quest, earning Solari's excitement. She grants him immense power that she had gathered in her safe haven. She will no longer be assisting him anymore, and will be watching his growth. Solari fades and wishes the best for his success. She disappears into nothingness, as the system greets Junwoo and classifies him as the sun's great warrior. His only main quest now is to stop Luna for good. Junwoo reawakens at last. Kalpel wasn't a bad guy all along. He apologizes for pushing him like that and offers a helping hand. He wants to know if his meeting with Solari went well, to which he nods in approval. The musician sings with glee, but the mercenary is just out of it. He's got a lot of things to think about and prefers to be quiet. Junwoo thinks about the sun goddess, and realizes that his goal so far was to become strong for himself. But now he's got an even more impossible mission. He has to defeat the moon goddess as well as the demon king. Not to mention, he's awakened the powers of the sun. Solari's blessing is a skill that doubles his points on everything he earns. That means, if he gets to even level 350, his stats would be equal to a max level character in the game. And if he reaches the max level itself, he has a strong chance to defeat both of them. Still, Junwoo doesn't have much to celebrate. He still has to put in so much work and grind hard until he gets to the level he wants to. Next, he inspects the skill he acquired. His inventory has become limitless, and he's gained an item enhancement. With this, he's got infinite potential, as he will no longer need to check a warehouse. To test item enhancement, Junwoo checks if it works with a regular potion to observe its effects. The potion manifests into a high-grade sun potion, and while there is a cooldown of 1 week, it's still a great skill. Junwoo is happy with what he got and turns to check the other floor. Strangely, he's faced with a giant door. It also opens with ease, granting him 80,000 intelligence points for exploring the usurper's room. The usurper in question is the amazing Sepia, who is busy training with Crassus. The archer is surprised he discovered this location. Junwoo explains that it's due to his curious wandering, and even offers to leave. Crassus explains that they were going to wrap up the training anyway, and leaves instead. Sepia is overjoyed to find him alive and well. She apologizes for training by herself, but Junwoo thinks it's a great step. She's become really powerful in a short time. Junwoo is convinced that she can stay up to par with his powers despite his blessings. Her class is still hidden for some reason. Junwoo is really proud of her and pats her for working hard. She accepts the compliment despite being embarrassed. While she doesn't want to admit it, Sepia got this far thinking about Junwoo's condition. On the other hand, he has business with Crassus. He wanted to relay his thanks, but the clever Crassus knows he's got more than that to talk about. Junwoo decides to get to the bottom of it by asking a triggering question. Crassus immediately points his blade at him for his offensive remark. The Dark Elf burned down the World Tree many centuries ago and faced against the elves too. He was a boss character that the players faced, but Junwoo is curious about the reason he turned into an enemy. Crassus questions him, but Junwoo insists on his initial question, astonishing him greatly. He realizes that the key has already come in contact with the mural. Finally, he reveals that the World Tree was also a worshipper of the sun, and right after Solari's fall, Luna's power had creeped into the tree. In fact, the current Luna is different from the true goddess from back then. The current Luna is worried about her position. After Solari's fall, Luna massacred every single one of her followers, and desired the power of the World Tree, which acted like a god of mana reserves to the elves. Yet, the elves refused to believe that the tree had fallen under the control of the moon goddess. Since Crassus is a high elf lord, he rejected every single one of his kind to do what was right. Junwoo even knows about his search for the sapling of the World Tree. It's clear that the tree was corrupted, which means he's going to face elves in the future as his enemies. Junwoo switches topics and asks about Sepia's training. Crassus explains that all he taught her was how to use certain weapons and move. Despite his humble words, Junwoo knows that this guy is the real deal. Even with max-level characters, Crassus is an opponent he could barely manage to defeat. He's an incredibly capable fighter, so Junwoo wants to learn from him too. Crassus rejects him initially, but Junwoo cuts him off by lumping in the topic of the World Tree. Junwoo spews some triggering information about the tree's immunity to weapons. It even resists Vijaya, which is Crassus's weapon. The mercenary decides to show him something by revealing a Nidhogg. It's literally a one-hit kill weapon, the only weapon that could destroy the World Tree's sapling. It's the object that Crassus has been desperately searching for. Crassus goes into complete panic, questioning how he obtained the item. Junwoo simply acquired the object after beating him once in the original game. He dodges Crassus's forceful strike thanks to Solari's powers. Junwoo offers a way for both of them. He wants to learn everything he knows in exchange for the Nidhogg. Crassus remembers the World Tree pleading the young elf to kill it for the future of his race. She begged him to take the step, despite his anguish. During this era, dragons also existed. One of them was called the Calamity of Mana. The weapon Nidhogg was constructed from that dragon, and after many centuries, Crassus obtained the weapon at the Howling Cauldron, the Hell's Gate. Using that weapon, he brought down the World Tree, but despite its destruction, one sapling survived and nurtured the World Tree again. Crassus embarked on a second journey to obtain the Nidhogg, and yet, this mercenary out of nowhere seems to have it in his inventory. After a long silence, he questions if the Sun Goddess tasked him with the mission to destroy the World Tree. Junwoo explains that he had the weapon merely because of Solari, and because of that, he's more than happy to bestow it upon the High Elf. This is a means to deceive, of course. Junwoo activates the Sun God's blessing, making Crassus believe in his words. The sun lost its battle against the moon, and he failed his mission to protect the World Tree as well. So all he could do in the end was destroy the World Tree with his own hands. Despite all his cries, the Sun Goddess failed to help him. But now, Crassus is certain. The Sun Goddess never abandoned the elves. He kneels before Junwoo, making him a bit uncomfortable. So he tries to leave and let him experience solitude. Sepia doesn't get what's happening either. Not even she has seen this side of him. Crassus is happy from the gift he received. Junwoo checks up on her and asks if she can use the power of the sun. Sepia demonstrates her skill by picking up a bow and releasing a powerful arrow, laced with the powers of the sun. The arrow gains immense power and penetrates everything in its path. It's the first time Junwoo has seen something like this. It even left her hand bruised after practicing it many times. The mercenary is happy to find her working hard. Sepia explains that she's been doing work and has yet to figure out a way to stop the overloading problem. Not even Crassus has a remedy for her state. But he did say he will ask about the Witch of Equilibrium. Suddenly, Junwoo receives a system notification informing him about the quest to meet the witch. He doesn't really anticipate meeting her so soon, but right now he's got nothing to look for anyway. Junwoo wants to take Sepia along when Crassus makes a sudden comment. He's now trusting of his powers and wants to help the mercenary with his training. Even though the goddess didn't mention a single word about Crassus or anything, Junwoo's expert gaslighting skills have saved the day again. He wants to begin training at once, but an unexpected visitor comes along. It's Kalpael again, who wants to start something. The dude releases a creepy smile before locking everything down in the shadows. Junwoo can sense the others, while Crassus tells him that there's one last thing he needs to learn. Kalpael's music opens a spatial crack in the dimension, tearing apart a whole new portal. Junwoo asks where it leads, but this guy ambiguously tells him that he'll find out when he goes inside. From just outside, Junwoo can see dozens of monsters expecting the dude. But our boy is in the mood to kick ass, so he walks right up to the challenge. Sepia, being his biggest fan, advises him to survive instead of good luck. And that means this isn't just training, but a really difficult battle for his life. Before he's able to hear anyone out, the poor guy gets sucked inside for his training. Meanwhile, Evelyn is getting bored to hell wondering where both Roberto and Junwoo went. She wonders if she should go looking for them both. The Shadow Witch gathers her motivation to go and find both of her lost friends inside the castle.